Chapter 228. The Level 11 Darkness Curse, Death God Scythe, accompanied by the Level 11 Fire Curse, Flame God Dragon's Roar, appeared at the same time. The explosion of the two Level 11 curses forced the gods to retreat in an instant. One of the slower gods was instantly sliced apart by the Death God Scythe, causing a rain of blood to splatter everywhere. The barbarians' gazes all turned towards Nienbing, and the faces of the gods instantly changed. At this moment, a black stream of air mixed with blood light floated out, enveloping the gods. Nienbing looked at the corpses. None of them were intact. Fresh blood dyed the ground red, and the miserable scene caused his killing intent to soar. The gods released their do-chi at the same time, but they did not fight the black stream of air head-on. Instead, they used all their strength to block the black cloud and turn to run. They knew that the opponent had an expert that they could not fight against. However, would Nienbing let them escape? No, of course not. A faint golden light enveloped the bodies of the gods like a barrier. As the light flickered, all of the gods felt a sharp pain in their heads, and their speed of escape slowed down. Following that, they saw 7 intersecting rainbow-colored light arcs. The light was so beautiful, but to them it was the summons of death. The bodies of the gods stopped moving at the same time, and the moment the rainbow-colored light disappeared, their flesh and blood scattered in all directions. Under the interference of the spiritual power, the gods did not even have a chance. Their broken bodies were swallowed by the black cloud behind them, and under the intense corrosion, they turned into pools of blood. Nienbing floated down to the ground like a god. The surrounding barbarians were all stunned, looking at Nienbing in a daze. Nienbing looked around. They were surrounded by darkness. Most of them were humans, followed by dwarves. Only a small portion of them had wings and pointed ears like the woman with long emerald green hair. Most of them were holding short bows in their hands. They were the only barbarians who had weapons. It was a pity, although their arrows were very accurate, but previously they were unable to break through the do-chi of the gods. Were these the survivors of the lost continent? Looking at them, Nienbing felt a sense of pity. At the same time, she felt a sense of loss. The physiques of these people were clearly much stronger than ordinary people. However, it would be a joke for them to defend against the gods' continent. The gazes of the savages gradually shifted from Nienbing to Yu. When they saw Yu's appearance, the dullness in their eyes gradually turned into fanaticism. First, the innermost person knelt down. Immediately after, like ripples in the water, they all knelt down. Their foreheads were all black. They seemed to be saying something, but their voices were indistinct due to their excitement. However, it was obviously different from the language of the Yangon continent. It was mainly reflected in the tone. From the pronunciation, it was barely understandable. They seemed to be saying something. The goddess had finally descended. "Oh goddess, please save us." Nienbing and Yu looked at each other. Yu looked at Nienbing said, "Can you help me bury these dead people?" Nienbing nodded silently. He instructed the 7 shadow puppets to dig a hole in the wide, yellow ground beside them. Yu looked at the kneeling savages on the ground, and a bitter smile appeared on her tender face. She sighed and said, "Get up, don't be like this. I don't even know what's going on. I'm not a goddess, I'm just an ordinary person." As soon as she said this, the savages suddenly became chaotic. All kinds of excited voices sounded continuously. Tens of thousands of people expressed their feelings. Suddenly, the scene became very chaotic. "Shut up!" Nienbing shouted. He had previously killed those gods with a divine aura. At this time, he showed the effect of deterrence. The savages immediately calmed down. Their gazes were all focused on him. Nienbing said, "You all are so chaotic. How can we understand the situation? We are here to help you. Please choose a representative to talk to us." He also did not know if the savages could understand his word. So, he said every word very clearly. He also released his spiritual energy to express his goodwill. The savages discussed in low voices. After a while, the green-haired girl who caught Nian Bing's attention walked out from the crowd. The savages all opened up a path for her to walk in front of Nian Bing and Yu. The girl walked in front of Yu and bowed down. Yu quickly supported her and said, "Don't be like this. Great goddess, you have finally arrived. Please save us, the last of your companions." Her voice had a soft feeling. Although the intonation was hard to distinguish, as long as one listened carefully, they could understand what she meant. Yu smiled bitterly. "I am really not a goddess. I can't say that I will save you. But we are willing to help you. Are you the only people left in the lost continent? Do you have any records of the past? For example, some last words left behind by your seniors?" The green-haired girl blankly shook her head and said, "Is the lost continent you are talking about our sinful land? We only have a legend. Countless years ago, because we had blasphemed the gods, we were punished. The gods made us lose most of our water and food. The number of our seniors kept decreasing. If it was not because there was still one last source of water here, I am afraid we would have died long ago. And in the legend, there was a goddess who would come to save us. We have always been looking forward to it. You look just like that goddess." A few days ago, the sky here suddenly changed. The earth trembled and roared. We were very scared, thinking that the gods were going to punish us again. But at that time we saw your miracle. Great goddess, you have finally come. I beg you, please save us. Speaking until here, tears kept flowing down her face. While trembling, the tattered clothes on her body were unable to cover her white skin. Nian Bing, who was at the side, was afraid that he saw something he should not see, so he turned his head away. At this time, no matter if it was Nian Bing or Yu, their hearts were filled with a strange feeling. The legend that the green-haired girl said was completely different from what they knew about the lost continent. It seemed that the lost continent had not only left this world, but also lost their civilization. The green-haired girl's sadness came from her heart. From these savages' simple and somewhat foolish eyes, Nian Bing understood that they really did not know anything. Nian Bing's heart was filled with disappointment. It was not because these lost continent survivors who did not have much ability could not help him, but because of the lost civilization of the lost continent. A continent's civilization had completely disappeared. Other than regret, he did not have any other feelings. At the same time, he also felt some sympathy for these savages in front of him. He secretly decided that he must help them escape from their suffering. At least, he could not let them suffer any more harm from the gods. Yu looked at the green-haired girl. Her mood was similar to Nian Bing's. She softly said, "All right. I understand your loss. How did you get into a conflict with those guys from before?" The green-haired girl's eyes revealed grief and indignation. "They came here not long ago. Seeing unfamiliar compatriots, we were originally very excited. However, those people only said a few words to us before they suddenly laughed out loud. 2 of them left. The remaining people immediately came to kill our companions. If it was not for the goddess and this hero who came in time, I'm afraid that many of our companions would have died." Yu's face changed and said, "You're saying that some of them left?" As she said that, her gaze turned to Nian Bing. Nian Bing was also looking at her. He shook his head and said, "There's no need to chase. Yu, this may not be a bad thing. Rather than not knowing where the gods will attack from, it's better to fight them to the death here. At least we can start to prepare first." Yu lowered her head and said, "Thank you. But we can." Nian Bing interrupted Yu's words and said, "Now it's not a question of whether we can or not, but we must do this. I didn't expect that the gods would cause so much damage to the lost continent. I don't want to see the Yangon continent become the second lost continent." At this time, the 7 dragon kings and others had also arrived. When these survivors of the lost continent saw the giant dragon descending from the sky, it became impossible to convince them that Yu was not a goddess. Just as Yu told the Dragon King, Feng Nu and Kitty, about what happened here. The girl who was talking to Yu before walked to Nian Bing. She looked at him curiously and suddenly said loudly, "Hero, let's mate." Silence, the whole place fell into silence. Nian Bing clearly felt Feng Nu's somewhat unkind gaze. He stuttered, "Miss, are you talking to me?" The green-haired girl didn't have the slightest shyness. Her voice was still very loud. "Of course. Hero, you are so powerful. I think our children will be very healthy. Although I am from the elf clan and you are a human, but I think we should not be estranged." While speaking, she looked at Nian Bing with longing eyes. Not long after, Nian Bing found out that the survivors of the lost continent, in order to survive, as long as they were interested, the women would mate with the strongest men. Among them, because the elf clan's physique was the weakest, so when they reproduced, their numbers became the least. Nian Bing's handsome appearance and valiant strength won this elf girl's attention. However, Nian Bing didn't know this now. Feeling Feng Nu's piercing gaze, his heart contracted and he smiled bitterly. "Miss, don't joke. I don't seem to know you." The green-haired elf girl laughed heartily. "I am the elf clan's Ningji. Now we know each other." Can we not discuss this problem?" Nian Bing said awkwardly. "Why?" Ningji blinked her big eyes at Nian Bing, her eyes showing a trace of puzzlement. Nian Bing was completely speechless. He turned his head to look at Feng Nu, using his eyes to ask for help. Feng Nu snorted and said, "Solve your own problems yourself. And it seems that your punishment needs to be extended. Seducing a girl again. I am innocent. If there was a river here, Nian Bing really wanted to jump into it and drown himself." Kitty giggled and came to Nian Bing's side and said, "Brother Nian Bing, what is mating? Is it very fun?" Nian Bing looked at Garamandes, who was rejoicing in his misfortune, and said, "Brother, do you have tofu? Give me a piece." Garamandes stared blankly and said, "What?" Nian Bing cried out in grief, "Kill me with tofu." Garamandes Nian Bing blinked and said, "What a good opportunity! Such a beautiful girl, don't tell me you are not tempted?" Okay, Garamandes, although I am not a person who holds grudges, I will remember this grudge. I don't know how Xuejing will feel if she knows that you are fooling around outside. This is Miss Ningji. This is my brother. He is much more capable than me and is most suitable for mating. Look, he is also a dragon king. Think about it, if you elves mate with dragons, the children born will definitely be healthier. Ningji's beautiful eyes lit up. That's right. It would also be good if I could mate with dragons. Hello, then let's mate. You will be the father of my 11th child. After saying that, she walked towards Garamandes. Nian Bing saw Garamandes's expression change greatly and said, "Brother, you see, I am so generous. I even gave you the beauty. Didn't you say you were tempted? Hurry up and seize the opportunity." Alright, stop messing around. Miss, perhaps our customs are different, but they won't mate with you. Kajiasis finally couldn't stand it anymore and ended the farce. After everyone discussed, the 7 Dragon Kings, Kitty, Yu and Heichao stayed behind. Nian Bing and Feng Nu rushed back to Ice Moon Lake. Since there were gods who escaped, then the army of the continent of gods would very likely come to this land in the near future. They must use the shortest time to react. While flying in the air, Nian Bing asked tentatively, "Feng Nu, are you still angry?" Feng Nu rolled her eyes and said, "Do I look like someone who gets angry easily?" No, of course not. Nian Bing subconsciously said the first word, but she realized that she said the wrong thing. Looking at Feng Nu's unkind expression, she quickly changed her words. Feng Nu snorted and said, "Do you want to be the father of that elf girl's 11th child? I think you want it very much." Nian Bing smiled apologetically and said, "How can I? With all of you around, why would I think about other women?" Feng Nu snorted and said, "Well, you explained to me in detail your relationship with Mu Jing and Luoro." "Oh right, and Kitty." Nian Bing was stunned and said, I have nothing to do with them. What is there to explain? Nothing to do with them? That's not right. Do you think we can't see it these days? The way Mu Jing and Luo Ro look at you is not right, especially that Mu Jing. When she secretly looks at you from the side, she looks like she wants to eat you. As for Kitty, although you say you treat her as a sister, but looking at her, I am afraid she will never leave you. You also promised to leave a place for Luo Ro and Mu Jing in the place where we live in seclusion in the future. Don't you need to explain this? Nian Bing was speechless. Although he did not care about this, he had to admit that what Feng Nu said was true. He thought with grief and indignation. It seemed that his punishment would really be extended indefinitely. At this moment, his lips suddenly felt warm and soft. The sudden gentleness startled him. He subconsciously hugged Feng Nu and looked at her in surprise. Fool, I am joking with you. Feng Nu's eyes were full of smiles. Do you think I don't know what kind of person you are? These days you have experienced too much. I can see that you are already very tired. No matter whether they are really interested in you or not, you just need to take care of yourself. We believe in you. Even if you really accept them, as long as you love me the most, I have no objections. Nian Bing was overjoyed. He kissed Feng Nu's lips back. Is what you said true? That's great. Feng Nu rolled her eyes at him and said, I just said a few good words to you. You immediately showed your true colors. I knew you already had evil intentions. I am innocent. No, I mean, it's true that you're joking. I am not interested in them. Feng Nu hugged Nian Bing and shook him, saying, Okay, no need to explain. Nian Bing, I really want to find a place with you to live in seclusion. We don't need to worry about these things. The ending of the lost continent is something we did not expect. Tell me, can we really fight against those gods? Nian Bing hugged Feng Nu's elastic body and said calmly, I also don't know. However, it is not completely impossible. Looking at it simply. Although we have a lot of strong people on our side. However, this time, we have 600 magicians from the Ice Moon Empire. Among them, there are 100 elite magicians from the Ice God Tower. And those 1,000 fire magicians from the Huarong Empire may also be used by us. They were trained by the Rong family and have cooperated with each other for many years. Once they launch a group of magic, it is very terrifying. Many people think that the Order of the Fire Dragon of the Rong family is the most terrifying. In fact, they are wrong. The most terrifying thing of the Rong family is those 1,000 fire magicians. Although there are only a few magicians, and only my grandfather is the god-descending magician. However, under my grandfather's command, the attack power of these magicians is almost unimaginable. The Ottoman Empire and Longmu Empire also have some magicians. Luo Ro, Mu Jing, and I have discussed it. We will split them up and regroup them according to their respective magicians. We have a total of 2,500 magicians. It can be said that we have gathered the most outstanding magicians in the Yangon continent. With them, we can coordinate with the 2,000 elites of the Blood Lion sect. I dare say that they are enough to fight against ordinary gods. Even demigods and gods may not be able to do anything to them. There is one thing you have to understand. There are only about 10,000 gods. Every time one of them dies, their power will weaken. The truly terrifying ones in the godly continent are the main gods. If it was before the Ice Valley, I could say that I had no confidence at all. However, now that my spiritual power has been liberated, if given the chance, I am confident that I can fight against one or two main gods. There may even be more. My advantage is spiritual power. That is something they do not have. I have a feeling that this battle will not be settled in one go. I am afraid that it will take a long time. The Huarong Empire, other than the 2 night regiments, has also transported 50,000 elite troops from the sea. In addition to the troops from our 3 countries, we should have a total of 200,000 troops. Although these troops are not enough to fight against the gods, they can at least delay them. We have many magicians on our side. With our combined strength, we can prevent the gods from launching large-scale destructive attack. As long as there is enough time for me to use my spiritual power, we can slowly wear them down. Feng Nu's expression changed slightly. No wonder you invited the 4 countries to reclaim this land. So you had this plan. Won't the 200,000 troops become cannon fodder? Her gaze gradually became angry. She did not expect Nian Bing to be using them. Nian Bing's eyes flashed coldly. I do not want to do this either. However, this is our only chance. Do you want to see the millions of lives in the Yangon continent suffer? Do you want to see the Yangon continent become like the Lost Continent? For the future of the Yangon continent, sacrifices are unavoidable. At the critical moment, I am even willing to sacrifice myself. Of the 8 main gods, 1 is dead and 1 is seriously injured. The dragon god will not take their side. However, there are still 5 main gods on their side. Any one of them will bring us great trouble. They can even easily destroy a city. How many people are there in a city on the Yangon continent? Can you tell me? Feng Nu looked at Nian Bing's firm gaze, and the anger in her heart gradually disappeared. Nian Bing was right. Although his approach was cruel, it was indeed the only way. Now, the biggest disadvantage of the gods was that they were not flexible. Only a direct battle would be more advantageous to the Yangon continent. Otherwise, with so many gods, if they were scattered on the Yangon continent, then the whole continent would become a disaster. However, in her heart, she still found it difficult to accept Nian Bing's idea. Nian Bing sighed and continued, I have carefully calculated, those who can be considered strong on our side are you, me, Chen Chen, and Ling can barely be considered as one. My father-in-law Long Ji, mother, father, the 7 Dragon King brothers, Halogen brothers, Yu's strength, I am not sure, but should be considered as one. Kitty's pets are also not bad, plus my grandfather. In total, these are all. In a direct battle, all of us together may not be able to deal with the 5 main gods. If we don't use some special methods, we won't even have a chance. Perhaps you will think that my method is somewhat inappropriate, but this is the best method I can think of. Perhaps I will need to use some irregular methods. Feng Nu bit her lower lip and said, Do the Dragon King know your idea? Nian Bing nodded solemnly and said, In the past few months I have already discussed with them, and I have also thought of various possibilities. Brother Kageyoshi even consulted the dragon god. In the end, we all understood that this method is the most likely to succeed. All we can do is to try our best to avoid losses. For the sake of more people's lives, we must pay the price. Feng Nu said, Then what about the 3 true gods you mentioned? What if they also participate in this war? Nian Bing said without hesitation, If they also participate in this war, I will let everyone immediately return to the Yangon continent. However, I don't think that kind of situation will appear. They had reached their level. They already have no desires. Moreover, even if they really appear, there are people who can deal with them. Speaking of this, he couldn't help but think of the sisters who had completely opposite auras but looked exactly the same. He didn't know if Cao and Tianxiang had found a way to fuse the 2 different auras of life and death. Only they could compete with the 3 true gods. Feng Nu looked deeply at Nian Bing. No matter what decision you make, you must take me with you. This time, don't abandon me again, okay? Nian Bing stroked Feng Nu's soft long hair and said, I have never abandoned you. I said it. In my heart, no one can replace your position. This time is different. For the sake of the Yangon continent, we must concentrate all our strength. Feng Nu, if we really have to die, let us all die together. I have always thought that. That is also a kind of happiness. Now, the lives of more than 200,000 people and ourselves are in the hands of God. Let us gamble and see what our fate is. Feng Nu looked deeply at Nian Bing and said, Then let's gamble. As long as I am with you, I will accompany you no matter how big the gamble is. A dark cloud drifted from the distance, bringing a bit of chill to the warm land. When the dark cloud blocked the sun, the chill became more intense. The Yangon continent had already entered the warm spring. The position of the lost continent was almost parallel to the Yangon continent. Looking at the rolling dark clouds in the sky, Nian Bing smiled and said, "The spring rain is coming. Let it fully nourish this land. Perhaps, in a few years, the lost continent will gradually develop. Although the original race here has declined, it has come back after all. Unfortunately, I forgot to set up a space transmission point on the other side of the frozen moon lake. Otherwise, we would not have to fly such a long distance. I have already set up a transmission array in the place of those survivors. When we come back, it will be much easier." Feng Nu couldn't hide the worry between her eyebrows. She sighed and said, "Nian Bing, we haven't been alone together for a long time. Do you still remember the scene when we first met?" Nian Bing smiled and said, "Of course I remember. At that time, your appetite really shocked me. If I remember correctly, I made pigeon meat rice for you that time." Feng Nu nodded and said, "Yes, it was really delicious. The food you make is the most delicious thing I have ever eaten. When we go into seclusion in the future, you have to cook for me every day." A bright light streaked across the sky. Lightning lit up the surrounding space for a moment. Then, a clap of thunder sounded. Fine raindrops floated down. Under the breeze, the raindrops filled the space between heaven and earth. A faint seven-colored light curtain rose from Nian Bing's body, isolating the raindrops from her body. Looking at the drops of crystal-clear raindrops, he hugged Feng Nu's delicate body tightly. "I also hope to go into seclusion with you as soon as possible. Having you with me is my greatest happiness. Dad, Mom has returned safely. When we go into seclusion, let's go to the Peach Blossom Forest." "Peach Blossom Forest? What's that place?" Feng Nu asked. Nian Bing's eyes showed deep emotions. "It's the place where I lived for 8 years. At that time, my parents were sealed by the ice goddess priest. I jumped into the river to escape. It was Master who saved me. Master lived in that peach blossom forest. There, I learned cooking from Master for 8 years. Master is my benefactor. If it weren't for him, I'm afraid I would have died long ago." Fallen leaves return to their root. The Rong family is not my root, but the peach blossom forest is. When I left, I burned that place to the ground. When we go back, I want to rebuild that place. I think if Master has a soul, he will be happy to see us living happily. He will definitely be very happy." In Nian Bing's heart, the person he was most grateful to in his life was Jia Ji. Jia Ji brought him to the highest realm of cooking. At the same time, he also gave him a new life. Feng Nu pointed to the front and said, "Look, we're in the ruins again." Nian Bing looked in the direction of Feng Nu's finger. Large pieces of broken stones were spread over hundreds of square kilometers below. Scattered stones and faintly discernible stone walls were everywhere. They could vaguely see that this place used to be a city. From those stone walls that were not completely damaged, the city walls were at least 20 or 30 meters high. Obviously, it used to be a big city. Unfortunately, in this big city, there was no longer any sign of life in the area. When they were looking for the survivors, they had passed by here. At that time, they deliberately went down to look for records of the lost continent. However, except for stones, they almost didn't find anything useful. Even simple carvings didn't exist. It's a pity that this is just a ruin. It's ridiculous. When I came back from the lost continent, I was always worried that the strength of this continent was too strong, but now I feel the opposite. Feng Nu looked up at Nianbing and suddenly said, "Let's go down to take shelter from the rain, okay?" Nianbing was stunned. With their strength, why would they need to take shelter from the rain? But looking at Feng Nu's hopeful eyes, he really couldn't bear to refuse. Since returning from the godly continent, he hadn't been able to be alone with Feng Nu. Without saying anything, he nodded and floated down to the ruins. The ruins full of stones were shrouded in a dead silence. The two quickly found a place that seemed to be a stone house. Although only half of it was left, it was enough to take shelter from the rain. Chapter 229. The rain fell, bringing with it a rustling sound. Feng Nu nestled in Yen Bing's arms and looked at the raindrops falling outside. Her eyes showed a trace of gentleness. How wonderful it would be if I could watch it with you every time it rains. Yen Bing, hold me tight, will you? I'm a little cold. Yen Bing hugged Feng Nu tightly. At this time, he naturally would not say anything that would ruin the atmosphere. Feng Nu's delicate body was unusually warm and soft, and the faint virgin fragrance constantly stimulated his sense of smell. But at this time there was only a strong love in his heart, and not the slightest desire. He also wanted to stay peacefully with Feng Nu like this until the end of time. The rain continued to fall. Spring rain had always been known for its incessant rain. The rain was not very heavy, and a curtain of water kept washing this desolate continent. Yen Bing remembered the seeds he had scattered. Under the nourishment of the rain, they should have sprouted. With the emergence of plants, the vitality of this continent would become stronger and stronger, which was what he wanted to see the most. The two people hugged each other and watched the rain. They forgot about the time, as if only a moment had passed in less than half an hour, but also as if a century had passed. Yen Bing, do you know why I asked you to come down with me? Feng Nu looked up at her lover. Yen Bing stroked her long hair and said with a smile, Of course I know. Perhaps this is the only chance for us to be alone for a while before the war. Let's stay here until the rain stops. Feng Nu sighed softly. Aren't you afraid of delaying the time? Yen Bing shook his head and said, In my heart, no matter how important something is, it is not as important as your love for me. What's more, the time of the rain doesn't mean anything. No matter how fast those gods were, it was impossible for them to kill their way to the place where the survivors were located without 10 days. I have calculated carefully. That place is 3 days away from our ice moon lake. It will take at least 5 days to fly to the gods' mainland. This was calculated based on my flying speed. Of course, there are some gods who are stronger than me, but most of them aren't as fast as me. No matter how fast I am, it'll still take me 10 days. 10 days is more than enough for us to make preparations. Don't talk anymore. Let's finish watching this rain. I like this feeling very much. Feng Nu clung to Yen Bing's chest and suddenly burst into laughter. Hero, let's mate. Yen Bing was taken aback. She smiled bitterly and said, You still haven't forgotten? I really didn't know that elven girls would be so passionate. Don't embarrass me. Feng Nu blushed and said, Silly. I'm serious. Yen Bing's body trembled slightly. Feng Nu, you. At this time, his heart was full of deep affection. He certainly understood why Feng Nu said this. She didn't want to leave a trace of regret before the war. Feng Nu looked up at him and said with a chuckle, Hero, let's mate. She looked at Yen Bing. Although she was a little shy, her voice was firm. In Feng Nu's heart, she was not optimistic about the confrontation with the gods. However, the war was inevitable. Before the war came, she wanted to give herself to the person she loved the most. The matter of the Feng people had been solved. She was willing to give herself completely to Yen Bing. Even if she died in the final war, she would not have any regrets. Love needed to be sublimated. Only when the soul and desire were completely merged, could they fully understand each other's true love. Yen Bing looked at Feng Nu in a daze. Feng Nu was also looking at him. Gradually, Feng Nu closed her eyes. She pulled Yen Bing's big hands and placed them on her burning face. So beautiful, she was really beautiful. He lowered his head. When he kissed those soft and moist lips, with a bang, a scorching flame was ignited. The kiss turned into a deep and passionate kiss. Yen Bing hugged Feng Nu's arm even more tightly. Feng Nu abandoned all her reservations and responded passionately. She knew that at this moment, Yen Bing completely belonged to her. Oscar, who was in one body with Yen Bing, was ready to watch a good show. He suddenly realized that his perception of the outside world had disappeared. He could not help but curse. Damn you, Nianbing! Even at this time, you still can't forget to seal me. A thick feeling of spring continued to rise in this half-stone house. Nianbing's robe was already spread out on the ground. A rainbow-colored halo wrapped around their bodies like a large cocoon. Feng Nu's entire body was beautiful. That fair and slightly rosy skin, those slender and smooth thighs, those full and full breasts, and that mysterious virgin place. Although Feng Nu and Lanchen were sisters, they gave Nianbing two completely different feelings. When she was with Lanchen, Nianbing felt like she was melting an iceberg. But when she was with Feng Nu, Nianbing found that she was melted by her. The feelings that had been accumulated for many years exploded at this moment. The two completely opened their hearts, completely opening themselves to each other. Deep love and desire condensed in the depths of their souls. When they became one with Feng Nu's tender moans, a strong sense of satisfaction filled their bodies and minds. Pain seemed to have become unimportant. They hugged each other tightly, as if they wanted to fuse with each other. After many days, Nianbing's nervous nerves had relaxed. At this moment, he had forgotten everything. He constantly probed her in the midst of one sprint after another. At the beginning, he was still afraid of hurting his lover. However, when his lover under him wildly catered to him, when that elastic and tender body tightly locked around his body reacted crazily, reason was thrown to the back of his mind. In the crazy sprint, they welcomed one peak after another together. Their feelings were sublimated by the union of their spiritual desires. Their hearts were intimately connected with each other. What they offered was the essence of each other's lives. When the spring rain gradually thinned with the passing of the dark clouds, and the sound of the rain fell, the spring rain in the stone house gradually stopped. Feng Nu lay in Nianbing's arms, constantly gasping for breath. Her delicate skin exuded a layer of alluring red. For the first time, her heart trembled slightly. She was a girl after all. At this moment, other than feeling satisfied, she couldn't help but feel a little shy. Looking at the gradually stopping rain outside, Nianbing was exceptionally satisfied. Looking at the scattered clothes on the ground, he suddenly thought of bringing a blanket in the space ring next time. No, it definitely wasn't enough. He should bring 3 blankets. The union in the rain had a different feeling, although it was Feng Nu's first time. But her passion almost made her melt, especially since she had cultivated martial arts since she was young. Her physical strength was much better than Bing Yun's. Fortunately, her body had been transformed several times, and there was a huge amount of life force supporting her. Otherwise, she was afraid that the first one to lose her armor would be her. We should go. Feng Nu murmured in Nianbing's arms. How could she bear to let go of this feeling? But she knew that it was time to leave. And you should rest for a while. Can you still walk now? Nianbing chuckled, stroking Feng Nu's back and buttocks. He was reluctant to part with his wife's beauty. Feng Nu said slightly angrily, I want you to carry me. I really wonder if you're a magician or a martial artist. She was greatly satisfied. Now, she finally understood why her sister would moan so intensely when she was with Nianbing. She even regretted it a little. She regretted that everything between her and Nianbing had come too late. Nianbing laughed and said, You seem to be more enthusiastic than me just now. Look, it's a rainbow. His voice was full of surprise and a little joy. Feng Nu raised her head and saw the infatuated light in Nianbing's eyes. Following his gaze, she saw a 7-colored rainbow across the sky. Red, orange, yellow, green, cyan, blue, and purple. The 7 colors were distinct. Under the sunlight that reappeared, it looked so charming. Carry me up, let's go out and see, okay? After a long period of violent wind and rain, she really didn't have the strength to walk now. Nianbing hugged Feng Nu's delicate body and stood up. He first put on his clothes, then took a robe and carefully put it on her body, lest she be attacked by the cold after the rain. Feng Nu hugged his neck, put her face on his solid chest, and listened to the sound of his heartbeat. Nian Bing picked up Feng Nu's thigh, picked her up, kissed her lips, and then walked out of the stone house. After the rain, the air was mixed with the fragrance of the earth. It was particularly fresh to breathe, and the rainbow became more gorgeous. As soon as he walked out of the stone house, Nian Bing suddenly felt that there seemed to be some strange changes in the surroundings. In addition to the rainbow, there seemed to be a faint red light floating not far away. With a thought, he carried Feng Nu and flew up with the help of the wind element. Looking down from the sky, the red light became more obvious. When looking carefully, he could see that the red light was coming from a steeple in the middle of the ruins. Because of the weathering, the building was already crooked, and it could collapse at any time. Feng Nu's body suddenly became boiling hot, and she whispered, "Nian Bing, quickly, when we go there, it seems like something is calling me." Nian Bing's eyes flashed, and his right hand pressed the air, and rich Xiantian qi mixed with elements surged from the building. With a rumbling sound, the steeple was pushed down, and the originally dense red light suddenly became more intense. The light soared into the sky, and the rainbow in the sky shone brightly. Feng Nu's eyes lit up, and she suddenly broke free from Nian Bing's arms. The Feng people's royal feathers floated out, and the golden red wings quickly carried her towards the rising red light. Nian Bing was afraid that she would lose her, and hurriedly followed. When they arrived at the top of the red light, they could clearly see that on the ground where the steeple was originally, there was a red pattern. It was actually a pattern of a phoenix, and the fiery red light was dense. The phoenix seemed to be alive, and it was emitting a faint heat. Nian Bing and the others had seen this steeple when they first came here. Because the steeple could collapse at any time, Nian Bing used his spiritual power to check the interior. At that time, he didn't find anything in the steeple, and the ground didn't have any changes. But why did this pattern of a phoenix suddenly appear? The two floated down, and when they entered the red light, Nian Bing's strange feeling became more obvious. It was clearly a kind of energy, and although it wasn't very strong, it really existed. Feng Nu's body shone brightly, and when her body merged with the rising phoenix light, a deep voice slowly sounded, "Great Phoenix, I welcome your return." With a creaking sound, the ground actually split open, and a flight of stairs extended downwards. A mist floated out from the passageway below. Nian Bing hurriedly pulled Feng Nu to the side, and urged the light attribute innate qi to enter the passageway and cleanse the moldy air. Light and warmth were brought into the deep passageway. With the light elements cleansing, the moldy air was quickly evaporated, and in a short while, the air was fresh again. "What was that sound just now?" Nian Bing asked suspiciously. There were no longer any people in the lost continent, but the sound just now was very clear, and in the sound there was a bit of majesty. Feng Nu shook her head and said, "I also don't know, that sound seemed to be left behind by magic." "Nian Bing, do you still remember when we obtained the ancestor Phoenix's memories on the Phoenix volcano? The ancestor said that he was once the god of the lost continent, and his image was the totem of the lost continent. Maybe it was the phoenix blood in my body that triggered the mechanism here, and the appearance of the rainbow was the reason why the energy here was released. It seems that we have found the real historical remains of the lost continent." Speaking until here, her eyes were filled with curiosity, and also some excitement. Both of their eyes revealed a trace of joy, and when the moldy air was no longer coming, Feng Nu used her wings to fly, and continued to walk downwards with Nian Bing. The stone steps were very long, and after descending for no less than 100 meters, they finally reached the end. The darkness in the passageway did not affect them at all. Nian Bing's light attribute magic showed its due power, and a simple illumination spell illuminated the surroundings abnormally bright. The stone walls on both sides of the passageway were very smooth, and it was obvious that they were man-made. Although there was a bit of moldy air coming out, but overall, the passageway was still considered dry. When they reached the deepest part of the passageway, a huge door appeared in front of them. There was a circular pattern on the door, and within that protruding circle, there was a lifelike phoenix. What surprised them was that the phoenix pattern was actually inlaid with a ruby, and the ruby did not have any gaps, as if it was carved with a large piece of ruby before being inlaid. A faint red light shone, that was the energy of fire, but within the fire there was also a bit of coolness. The phoenix totem verified the thoughts in Nian Bing and Feng Nu's mind, and the two of them stopped in front of the door. Nian Bing tried to push with her hand, but the stone door did not move at all. She tried to use her spiritual power to probe inside, but was blocked by a gentle energy, and could not go in. Nian Bing frowned slightly, and muttered to himself, "This door is very strange, Feng Nu, did you discover anything?" As she said that, she turned around to look at Feng Nu. When she saw Feng Nu, she discovered that Feng Nu's eyes were focused on the ruby phoenix pattern on the stone door. Her eyes revealed a contemplative light, as if she did not hear Nian Bing's question. The Wind Maiden's robe fell, revealing her perfect body, and a faint red light surrounded her skin. Her eyes lit up, and the royal feathers behind her spread out to both sides, and her body floated up, arriving in front of the stone door. She raised her hand and gently stroked the ruby pattern, as deep emotions appeared in her eyes. The faint red light gradually turned golden, and as she stroked, it gradually merged with the ruby. The ruby's light grew brighter and brighter. Suddenly, the phoenix's eyes lit up, and with a flash of light, it just happened to meet Feng Nu's eyes. Feng Nu's body became sluggish for a moment, and immediately after, a clear phoenix cry rang out from Feng Nu's mouth. The red light around her body became more and more intense, and the scorching air forced Nian Bing to retreat. Only by releasing his Heaven's Eye domain could he not be affected by the phoenix's flames. Feng Nu's body was rapidly changing, and Nian Bing could vaguely sense a dignified aura emanating from Feng Nu's body. When the clear phoenix cry disappeared, the red light instantly disappeared, and Feng Nu's figure became clear again. She was a fiery red phoenix, and every feather on her body was as clear as a ruby. She had a pair of dignified red eyes, and the feathers on her body were as if they were carved from ruby. They shone with a resplendent light. Nian Bing whispered, 8 Phoenix transformations, Phoenix awakening, Phoenix transformation. Yes, at this time, Feng Nu had once again used the 8 transformations. Nian Bing suddenly realized that Feng Nu, who had completed the 8 transformations, was strangely similar to the phoenix pattern on the stone door. Just as he was thinking about the changes, the red phoenix flew up. It actually accelerated in a short distance, and directly rushed towards the stone door. Without waiting for Nian Bing to cry out in alarm, the phoenix that Feng Nu had transformed into actually merged into the stone door. The red light instantly blossomed with an even more dazzling brilliance, and the entire passageway seemed to tremble slightly. Immediately after, the huge stone door in front of them, along with the radiance, actually gradually rose up. With a rumbling sound, a scorching heat was released from the stone door. Nian Bing looked at everything in front of him in astonishment. He hurriedly took a few steps forward and walked towards the door. When he saw the full appearance of the rising stone door, he finally understood why he couldn't open it. The thickness of this stone door was completely beyond his imagination. It actually extended for a distance of nearly 10 feet. Furthermore, from the magical aura that was emitted from the stone door, this huge gate definitely contained a magical seal. Passing through the passageway formed by the gate, Nian Bing arrived inside. The first thing he saw was the totem that was shining with a golden light on the ground. This was a spacious square stone room, about 3 feet long on each side. In the center of the stone room, there was a huge phoenix statue that was completely carved out of red gemstones, shining with a dazzling brilliance. Yes, it was completely a piece of sparkling and translucent red gemstone. The phoenix was in the posture of flapping its wings, and the phoenix's eyes were inlaid with 2 pieces of golden gemstones. The fiery aura was emitted from this statue. Feng Nu didn't appear in the stone room. Ling Yanbing felt a little uneasy in his heart, and couldn't help but call out loudly, "Feng Nu, where are you? What exactly is this place?" Suddenly, a surge of heat came from the totem below Nianbing's feet. Nianbing's Heaven's Eye domain was actually unable to weaken this heat aura, forcing him to retreat from the totem's range. An illusory figure lit up from the golden pattern. A holy heat filled the entire stone room. This rising figure was the phoenix that Feng Nu had transformed into. From the beginning of the illusory path to gradually condensing into a solid body, it took an entire cup of tea's time. When she finally completely appeared, Nianbing let out a sigh of relief. At this moment, the low voice from outside sounded again. "Oh great Phoenix! You've finally returned. This day we've been waiting for too long. It's a pity that we, the subjects of the lost continent, are unable to escape the arrangement of fate. Perhaps you've come too late." Feng Nu once again transformed back into her human form. Looking at the huge phoenix statue in front of her, 2 streams of tears flowed down her face. From that low voice, she could feel a sense of true sorrow. That low voice continued, "What you're hearing now is the memories we left behind before our final destruction. Although I'm also about to die, I want to leave behind my feelings. Only when your energy appears can you hear my voice. As the last ruler of the lost continent, I've failed. However, I'm unwilling to admit my failure. I haven't done anything wrong. The lost continent has always been fighting for itself. However, in the end, I still lost. I lost to fate. I know that you've already done your best. However, just as we were about to win, those terrifying existences appeared. They forced us to leave our original world. I left the curse in the Yangon continent. Although we lost due to the participation of those terrifying existences, I feel that one day we will return. Because we belong to our own world, while those terrifying existences don't. Moreover, we've already found some information regarding them. We've even found some prehistoric super weapons. Perhaps only those weapons can destroy them. Although the lost continent has been sent to another space, I don't regret it. For freedom, I'm willing to give up everything. My subjects are also willing. Did they think that by cutting us off to another world, they could make us lose our faith? That's impossible. I firmly believe that Lord Phoenix has not died. One day in the future, you will definitely lead us back to our world. Not only will we obtain freedom, but we will also destroy those terrifying existences. In front of my subjects, I swear in my name, Luther 17, that one day we will return. Return to our world, and obtain everything that we deserve. Luther 17. Hearing these 5 words, Nianbing's heart trembled. She finally knew who left behind these last words. That was the final ruler of the lost continent, who had presided over the final battle between the lost continent and the godly continent. Unfortunately, in the battle against the powerless true gods, the lost continent was forcefully separated from this world and sent to another space. The terrifying existences that he was talking about were clearly those 3 true gods. Luther Xvingai's voice was so passionate. Although this was only his voice, Nianbing could still feel the intense battle in his heart. The passionate voice disappeared, and the stone room fell into a short silence. After a long while, a deep and dignified voice let out a long sigh. In this sigh there were too many things. There was anger, sadness, and also deep unwillingness. Lord Phoenix, if everything goes according to my plan, then, even if I die, my descendants will lead the lost continent to the godly continent. My descendants will definitely lead the army of the lost continent to raise the godly continent to the ground. We will eliminate the enemies that restrict our freedom and let the light of dawn return to the earth. In the curse that I left behind, there is a desire that can arouse the desire of humans. That curse requires the dark saintess to guide it. The night can be said to be my scheme. As long as we really return, becoming the ruler of the lost continent is just a joke. The one who truly benefits from the curse is actually only the dark saintess. However, it is impossible for her to become the ruler of the lost continent. Only the successor of my Luther family can become the ruler of this continent. However, just when I was filled with confidence, I found out that I was wrong about one thing. That was the judgment of those terrifying existences. That's right. How could they allow existences that could threaten them in the future to appear? When we were exiled to another space, when I was filled with confidence and prepared to lead the lost continent's people to develop again, they brought us disaster. They used their powerful destructive power to restrict us, changed our environment, and destroyed everything that could threaten them, including our army and my people. Right now, they are constantly destroying outside. What they want to destroy is not the lives of the lost continent's people, but the civilization of the lost continent. They used their own abilities to continuously destroy and change the order of the lost continent. Just now, I was able to escape here under the protection of my subordinate. However, I know that they will not let me live. The civilization of the lost continent has already been destroyed. Right now, all I can do is to leave my people with the last bit of hope. I have changed the curse that I left behind in the Yangon continent. If the lost continent can really return to our original world, then let the Dark Saintess become the ruler of my remaining people. Those terrifying existences will not leave us with any civilization. I have always thought that I am very smart, I have ambition, I have means. However, in front of their true destructive power, I find that I am so small. Lord Phoenix, I don't know if you can hear my voice. However, if you can really hear it, I, Luther 17, only have one request. Please treat my people well. Even if they have already forgotten the existence of the lost empire because of the destruction of their civilization, please treat them well. Those terrifying existences are not something that we can fight against. I only hope that the bloodline of the lost empire can continue to be passed down. Lord Phoenix, don't make unnecessary sacrifices. It is useless. I am going. Even if I die, I will walk out bravely. Lord Phoenix, you are the totem of the lost empire. Even if the lost empire is truly destroyed, this will never change. Farewell, our civilization. Sadness, deep sadness filled the entire room. Everything around them became somewhat unreal. At this moment, Nian Bing understood everything. The real reason for the destruction of the lost empire's civilization was not the environment of the alternate space. It came from the three true gods who were respectively known as the God of Destruction, the God of Order, and the God of Time. On the surface, they only said that they were banishing the lost continent. However, when they sent the lost continent into the alternate space and claimed that they were cultivating in a deep sleep, they came to the lost continent and completely destroyed everything that could threaten them. Not only did they destroy everything left behind from prehistoric times, but they also destroyed the entire civilization of the lost continent. What a ruthless method, what a scheme! Perhaps even Kao and Amaterasu did not know that they had secretly done so many things. True gods, they were indeed true gods. No wonder they did not care about the opening of Meorda's seal. It turned out that everything was already under their control. What else did they need to care about? The return of the lost continent to this world was just one more piece of land. That was all. The prehistoric civilization that could threaten them no longer existed. The lost empire also no longer existed. A light tinkling sound woke Nian Bing up from his grief and anger. He was shocked to see that a crack had appeared on the chest of the ruby phoenix statue in front of him. With a fine rustling sound, the crack gradually expanded. The light in the phoenix statue's golden eyes gradually dimmed. Feng Nu did not know when he had knelt on the ground. He looked at the statue in front of him in a daze. When the cracks covered the entire body of the phoenix statue, with a bang, the statue completely shattered. The ruby no longer had its dazzling light. Luther Xvi's voice was clearly stored in this statue. He was not only a great ruler but also a great magician. Such a clever design, even Nian Bing could not help but sigh at his own inferiority. It was a pity that the era of the Lost Empire had completely ended. Luther 17 did not manage to fulfill his wish and walked towards his death. A heart-shaped gem attracted Nian Bing's attention. When the statue was completely destroyed, only this gem was suspended in the center of the statue. The gem's light was very strange. It actually shone with two colors. One moment it shone with red light, the next moment it shone with blue light. It did not bring about any changes to the surroundings. However, Nian Bing could clearly feel that this gem contained an incomparably large amount of energy. What is this? Questions arose in his heart. At this moment, that heart-shaped gem suddenly moved. It floated lightly in front of Feng Nu and landed in her hand. Chapter 230. Terrifying Existence. What kind of terrifying existence is it? Feng Nu looked at the gem in her hand and murmured. The sadness in her eyes was not only from herself, but also from the deep sadness brought by the Phoenix bloodline. The Phoenix left its bloodline to the Feng people, and also left part of its memories to Feng Nu and Lan Chun. As the former totem of the Lost Continent, the Lost Continent's civilization was completely destroyed. The sadness from the deepest part of its bloodline was released without reservation, affecting Feng Nu's heart. The heat in the room had completely disappeared, and the golden totem on the ground no longer emitted light. Feng Nu still looked at the heart-shaped gem in her hand, and kept repeating that sentence. The gem in her hand gradually changed, and it no longer shone with blue light, but completely turned red. Nian Bing walked to Feng Nu's side and asked in a low voice, "What is this?" He faintly felt that this heart-shaped gem should have a close relationship with the Phoenix, and would even have an impact on the entire Feng people. Feng Nu looked at Nian Bing and said, "What is that terrifying existence?" "Nian Bing, you have been to the godly mainland, so you must know, right? Tell me, who destroyed the civilization of the Lost Continent?" Nian Bing sighed and said, "Yes, I know who it is. On the godly mainland there are 4 terrifying existences. Using the word terrifying to describe them is not wrong. You can understand how terrifying they are with simple numbers. From the perspective of magic, when one's strength reaches the 12th level, even if it's 1 level, there will be a qualitative leap. And those 4 terrifying existences were 3 of them who launched a 17th level super spatial magic. These 3 people are called the God of Order, the God of Destruction, and the God of Time. If not for them, with the strength of the main gods and gods of the godly mainland, I'm afraid that they would have been completely defeated in the Great War of the Gods 10,000 years ago. I have seen one of them before, but I can't see how strong he really is. However, I can be sure that Luther 17 is right. If they participate in the war between the continents, then everything will be destroyed. Even if all of us work together, we wouldn't be able to contend against one of them. However, the civilization of the Lost Continent had been destroyed by them. In this world, there was only one other true God who could pose a threat to them. Back then, when I was on the godly continent, it was this true God who saved my life. I didn't tell you this because I didn't want to burden you too much. However, to those true gods, the conflicts on the continent no longer arouse their interest. Therefore, I believe that the upcoming war will be completely a war between us and the gods of the godly mainland. Feng Nu looked at Nian Bing. He sighed softly. A civilization was destroyed just like that. Now, after we hear the last words of Luther 17, the civilization of the Lost Continent has disappeared without a trace. Nian Bing, I'm really scared. She didn't say what she was afraid of, but Nian Bing could understand her feelings. He opened his arms and hugged Feng Nu tightly. Feeling the warmth of Nian Bing's body, Feng Nu's heart calmed down a lot. Caressing the gem in his hand, he softly said, "Nian Bing, if our opponents are really only those gods, I think we'll have a higher chance of winning. Do you know what this gem is? It's called the Heart of the Phoenix. When we were at the Phoenix volcano, Chun Chun and I received the last teachings of our ancestor, the Phoenix. He told us that if we could find the heart of the phoenix that he had left behind on the lost continent, then we would be able to reach the 9th phoenix transformation in a short time and become a true phoenix, possessing the true strength of the phoenix. Hearing this, Nian Bing couldn't help but feel excited. The strength of the phoenix represented the strength of the 14th level. If Feng Nu and Lan Chen could both reach the 14th level, in addition to herself, the war with the godly mainland would indeed be much more confident. The originally less than 20% confidence would at least increase to 40%. Feng Nu, then let's hurry back. The earlier Yu and Chen Chen become stronger, the more advantageous it would be for us. Feng Nu nodded lightly and said, "The phoenix ancestor has already truly passed away. Right now, Chen Chen and I can be said to be his successors. Right now, the ones who have responsibilities are not only you and Yu, Chen Chen and I also have responsibilities. For the sake of our ancestor and Luther XVI's wishes, we must protect the lost continent from being poisoned." When Nian Bing and Feng Nu returned to the lakeside of the frozen moon lake, the large river that Halogen and the magicians were in charge of building had already been completed. The 30-zhang-wide river directly led to the encampment of the Huarong Empire. In the past few days, there had been heavy rain in succession, making the ice and water magicians much more relaxed. With the help of the rain, the water level of the river naturally rose very easily, and the first harvest of the crops had already been completed. Under the nourishment of the water source with the aura of life and natural magic, the harvest was very good. After a simple calculation, it was actually enough to feed the army stationed here. And the reinforcements of the 4 great empires had also arrived. The reclamation of the lost continent was progressing very smoothly. Right now, the second batch of seeds had already begun to germinate, and the planting area had also doubled compared to when they first arrived. Right after returning to the frozen moon lake, Nian Bing immediately ordered people to invite Halogen and the leaders of the 4 great empires to the lakeside for a discussion. At the same time, the military forces belonging to the Ice Moon Empire were mobilized to begin the preparation process. Feng Nu and Lan Chen did not participate in this discussion. Right now, the 2 girls were in a quiet room, researching the use of the phoenix's heart. They both knew that the ones who were truly decisive in this war were the experts on both sides. Although there was only a difference of 1 stage between the phoenix's 8th transformation and the 9th transformation, they, who had seen the strength of an overgod, knew that although it was only 1 stage, the strength it represented was completely different. In order to survive, in order to fulfill their responsibilities, they had to quickly discover the secrets of the phoenix's heart. Only then could they increase the chances of victory in this war. Right now, the leaders of the 4 great empires no longer needed to live in tents. Under the skillful hands of the craftsmen, the stone houses they built were much more comfortable than tents. Right now, in the largest stone house by the lakeside, the marshal of the Ice Moon Empire, Xuepe, the princess of the Longmu Empire, Mu Jing, the prime minister of the Ottoman Empire, Luo Ro, and the marshal of the Huarong Empire, Prince Rong Yen, were all deep in thought with their brows furrowed. This meeting, only the 4 highest-ranking commanders of the 4 great empires in the lost continent could participate. They had just finished listening to Nian Bing's report on this trip. However, Nian Bing had concealed the discovery of the lost continent's ruins. In order to strengthen the confidence of the 4 great empires, he could not reveal the existence of the true gods. Otherwise, it would bring about great panic. Prince Rong sighed and said, "Looks like we really have to make a move. Nian Bing, we'll do as you say. After I return, I'll bring people to meet up with you. Let's have a battle to destroy the true gods. I want to see. Is their strength stronger or our magic stronger? Nian Bing, I heard from Chen Chen that you've already rescued Rong Tian and your mother. Will they come this time?" Nian Bing looked deeply at his grandfather and said, "They should be on their way. Grandfather Yu." Everyone present knew of his relationship with the Rong family. There was nothing to hide. Prince Rong stood up and walked out. He opened the door. When he opened the door, he paused. I'm already old. My previous stubbornness has already passed. They gave me such an outstanding grandson like you. What else can I be dissatisfied with? The past is the past. No matter what they choose, it's up to them. After saying this, Rong Yen opened the door and left. His back seemed a bit older. Nian Bing sighed in relief. He knew that although his father could be together with his mother, there was always a deep regret in his heart. But in his father's heart, there was always one biggest regret. His father was different from him. His father was absolutely loyal to the family, which he did not have. Grandfather finally acknowledged the fact that his parents were together. This time, his father could also be at ease. After Prince Rong left, the atmosphere in the room became much more relaxed. Mu Jing said, "Big brother, do you have any specific arrangements this time? How should we arrange them?" Hearing that Princess Mu Jing, who had a special status in the Longmu Empire, actually called Nian Bing brother, Shuepa couldn't help but jump in fright. She thought to herself, it seems like I still haven't fully understood the power of the sect leader. He couldn't help but respect Nianbing even more now. Nianbing nodded and said, I already have a general idea, but I need to go there to start arranging. Jing your nature magicians don't need to go. In the war against the gods' continent, their nature magicians won't be of much use. After all, there aren't any plants to control there. It's better to let them stay here and continue to cultivate the lost continent. Mu Jing nodded and said, Everything will be according to Big Brother's arrangements. Other than the nature mages, we have quite a few mages of other elements on our side. As for the warrior Saint Realm warriors, we have been practicing with the Alland Empire's combined attack technique, so they should be of some use soon. In terms of logistics, you can rest assured. Not only do we have a good harvest from the crops we planted, I have also transferred a large amount of resources from the Longmu Empire. It should be enough to last for a short period of time. As for the reserve resources, they will be continuously sent over. However, I am more worried about the process of sending them over. After all, we are quite a distance away from the gods' continent. Nian Bing smiled and said, You don't need to worry about this. In these 2 days, while you are organizing the army, I will start building a large-range long-distance teleportation formation. I will also build a formation that can store spatial elements. With this formation, it will only take a moment to reach the gods' continent. Luo Ro said, Our Ottoman Empire's magicians have also been completely gathered. When you went to see the refugees, I have already transferred the army over. A batch of resources is also being sent over from the Empire. It should arrive within 10 days. Nian Bing, this time I will give you a surprise. However, it is thanks to your Ice Moon Empire's help that it can be completed. Nian Bing stared blankly and said, Surprise? What kind of surprise? Luo Ro smiled mysteriously and said, When we reach the gods' continent, you will know. In fact, this surprise has a lot to do with your contribution. I also researched it with the Imperial Court magicians before coming up with it. It's just that I don't know how big this surprise will be. Nodding, Nian Bing smiled and said, Well then, I will wait for your surprise. In 3 days, we must finish our preparations and then set off to the refugees. The earlier we arrange, the more advantageous it will be for us. You have to start getting busy. There is one thing you must remember, the magicians are our key. You must protect them well. Luo Ro and Mu Jing stood up. Mu Jing said, Brother, then we will go back and prepare. When the Huarong Empire's army arrives, we will immediately set off. The 2 girls bid farewell and left. At this time, only Nian Bing and Shuepa were left in the room. Shuepa said, Hierarch, do you have any other orders? Nian Bing said, Elder Shuepa, this time you will lead the Ice Moon Empire's people. I will command the elites and all the magicians. You heard what I said to them just now. Once the war begins, we must protect the magicians by any means necessary. According to my understanding of the gods, although they are strong, they are all warriors. Long-range attacks are our advantage. Snow Soul nodded and said, I understand what you mean. I'll go and arrange it now. For the final victory, sacrifices are inevitable. Shuepa also left. Nian Bing stood in the stone house and thought for a while. Then she pushed the door open and walked out. The fresh air was moist because of the ice moon lake. Fully enjoying the comfortable feeling, and looking at the green crops by the lake, Nian Bing's heart calmed down a little. She had left the peach blossom forest for several years. The world had changed so fast. When she left the peach blossom forest, she only had two things to do. One was to avenge her parents, and the other was to find the peak of her culinary skills. In the past few years, with the push of fate, her original intention had been constantly changing. She couldn't even participate in the God of Cookery tournament that she had always wanted. As expected, little Tian, who had the yin-yang harmony Tai Chi hand, became the new God of Cookery. As for her, she was fighting for her life. Her strength was improving rapidly, but she always felt that it was not enough. There were so many experts above her that she couldn't compete with. What about her culinary skills? Although she didn't waste it, she didn't have the time to find the true essence of her culinary skills. Thinking of this, Nian Bing couldn't help but sigh. A silver light flashed in her hand, and a small flower vase appeared out of thin air. She opened the lid, and a strong fragrance assailed her nose. It was refreshing and gave her an extremely comfortable feeling. She carefully poured a drop of juice into her mouth. Immediately, an indescribable fragrance filled her body. A faint warmth entered her body, and the feeling of being full of vitality immediately made Ling Nian Bing's depressed heart feel much better. Yes, this was the 100-flower dew that she refined in Cao's life domain. It took her a lot of effort to make this 100-flower dew. How good would it be if Master was still alive? If he could taste the 100-flower dew that she refined, she didn't know how happy he would be. What was the true essence of her culinary skills? What was it? She still didn't know. Little Tian's culinary skills should be improving all the time, but what about her? Her culinary skills were at most stronger in the aspect of magic. Although practice was no longer so important after reaching her level, she still needed time to think and innovate. Unfortunately, under the push of fate, it could be said that she had already achieved freedom. Wanting to reach the peak of her culinary skills was easier said than done. There were still about 3 years before the next God of Cookery tournament. If the war with the godly continent could be won smoothly, perhaps she would still have a chance. Only with enough thinking could it be possible to improve her culinary skills. Master, is your spirit in heaven already a little disappointed in me? I'm sorry, I don't want to be like this, but there are some things that I must do. If the Yangon continent can't even guarantee peace, then no matter how strong my culinary skills are, where can I show them? Master, I really miss you. Look at me. As long as this matter is over, I will devote myself to the cultivation of my culinary skills. I will never let you down again. A cool breeze blew, and the moist air carried a hint of faint earthy fragrance. It entered Nian Bing's nose, and the fragrance of the 100-flower dew lingered in her mouth for a long time. Thinking of her master, Nian Bing naturally thought of the ice goddess priestess. Ridiculous, really ridiculous. She didn't expect that she would be her master's lover, and her mother's senior sister. Deformed hatred blinded her eyes. Was her master wrong? No. Her master wasn't wrong. In the culinary competition with the ice goddess priestess father, winning was naturally her master's pursuit. Moreover, with her master's character, it was impossible for him to humiliate the other party. There were only 2 possibilities. 1, the ice goddess priestess father was too stubborn. The other, the ice goddess priestess misunderstood her father's intentions. The love between them could be said to be sorrowful. It wasn't only her master's sorrow. At the same time, it was also the ice goddess priestess' sorrow. In fact, her master had never really blamed her. However, she couldn't forgive herself. She didn't know how she was now. Unfortunately, she awakened too late. Her master had already passed away. Even if she regretted it, where could she find him? Heavens! Could it be that between them, it was destined to be a tragedy? Nian Bing. A deep voice awakened Nian Bing from her thoughts. When she turned around, she saw Halogen standing not far behind her with a silent face. Nian Bing didn't feel when he arrived. From Halogen's complicated gaze, Nian Bing could see that his current mood was unstable. Big brother Halogen, even if you didn't come to find me, I would have gone to find you. Let's go, let's talk in my room. Saying this, Nian Bing walked to Halogen's side, patted his shoulder, and brought him to her room. The current Halogen didn't need to use the longevity blade to hide his true appearance. War god Halogen's fame was not inferior to Prince Rong's fame in the 4 great empires and the Lost Continent's army. Most people in the army didn't know of Nian Bing's existence, but there was definitely no one who didn't know of the war god. In these 3 months, Halogen used his tyrannical strength to conquer the hearts of all the soldiers. Wherever the war god went, no matter which country's generals or soldiers, they would all have the most reverence for him. Martial artists would always worship the strong. Nian Bing's room wasn't big. In the 10-square-meter stone room, other than a wide bed, there wasn't anything else that could fit in. Upon entering, Nian Bing saw Long Ling's smile. Feng Nu and Lan Chen went to train, so Long Ling took the initiative to take care of Nian Bing's meals and lodging. Seeing him enter, she hurriedly went to greet him with a smile. "You're back. Big brother Halogen is also here. Come in and sit." Nian Bing and Halogen entered the room and sat down. Long Ling poured 2 cups of water for them. When she was pouring the water, she noticed that Halogen's expression wasn't right. She smiled and said, "You guys talk, I'll go out and take a look." As a virtuous wife, when the men wanted to talk, she naturally wouldn't stay. Seeing Long Ling's departing figure, Halogen lightly sighed and said, "Nian Bing, you have a good wife." Nian Bing smiled faintly and said, "No, it's because I have 3 good wives. They are all my dearest. Big brother Halogen, I know what you want to ask. I hope that you can remain calm after listening to my word." Halogen deeply looked at Nian Bing and said, "When we just returned to this place where our ancestors lived, I had already prepared for the worst. Brother, do you know how I felt when I first saw this desolate place? Our great dwarf ancestors' hard work didn't get the reward they deserved. Although I wasn't born here, I grew up here. However, I have deep feelings for this land. Thus, I spared no effort to help them reclaim this desolate continent. Brother, thank you. If it wasn't for your relationship, I'm afraid this place would still be a desolate place." Halogen's eyes revealed heartfelt gratitude. He was thanking Nian Bing from the bottom of his heart. Seeing the lake form, seeing the large expanse of plants planted in the surroundings, the disappointment he felt when he first came here gradually disappeared. Nian Bing shook his head and said, "Big brother, there's no need for thanks between us brothers. Seeing this place gradually change, I'm also very happy. Perhaps in the near future, when the lost continent is fully reclaimed, the 4 great empires will fight over territory. This is the human's bad habit. But after all, at that time, the lost continent will once again radiate vitality. This time, we went to see those survivors. They already don't have any memory of their ancestors. They are only constantly struggling for survival. Among them, there are humans, elves, and your dwarf race." Halogen's body shook slightly. "No memory? Nian Bing, can you say it more clearly?" Nian Bing nodded and said, "They don't have any memory, and at the same time, the lost continent also lost its own civilization." Immediately, he told Halogen everything he had seen and heard, including the remains found in the ruins, as well as the words of Luther 17. He spoke very carefully without leaving anything out. While speaking, he looked at Halogen's gradually changing complexion. When Nian Bing finished speaking, Halogen's aura was already extremely unstable. His face was so heavy that it seemed like water was about to drip out. He fiercely raised his hand, as if he was about to slap the table beside him. But when his hand fell, he finally restrained his do-chi and said dejectedly, "Bastards, those 3 bastards. They actually destroyed a civilization, a civilization!" Nian Bing stood up and walked to Halogen's side. She tightly grasped his broad shoulders. He said, "Big brother, if I were those 3 true gods, maybe I would do the same. I would do the same because it was to protect my own position. In this world, there is no absolute right or wrong. Whoever's fist is harder, then everything he does is right. Now, the most important thing is to deal with the crisis brought by the godly continent. Protect your last clansmen and prevent them from being harmed. As for those 3 true gods, we can't touch them. Big brother, do you understand what I mean?" Halogen looked deeply at Nian Bing and said, "I understand, of course I understand. Even if we join forces, it's impossible for us to be a match for those 3 bastards. But I'm not willing. Our lost continent's civilization disappeared like this. How can I be willing?" Nian Bing's eyes shone brightly. Suddenly, he pulled Halogen up from his seat and said sternly, "Halogen, listen to me clearly. Have you forgotten why Senior Ruarong and Aunt died? They did it to help you and me. What's the use of being unwilling now? Don't tell me you think you can't compare to your ancestors? Since your ancestors were heroes, then you can also become a hero. The hero of the dwarf clan. The previous civilization was destroyed, but why can't you lead your clansmen to rebuild a new civilization? Immersing yourself in pain and hatred is useless. You have to work hard for your clansmen, for the dwarf clan civilization, and even for the lost continent's civilization. The dwarf clan still has you. Your clansmen in the lost continent have forgotten what the dwarf clan once had, but you haven't forgotten. You can pass on what you have to them. Don't tell me the dwarf clan can't become strong again? At that time, you will be the hero of the dwarf clan. The greatest hero in the history of the dwarf clan. For your clansmen, you have to pull yourself together. Revenge is important, but what's more important is the inheritance. Otherwise, if you die while taking revenge, can you be worthy of Ant's sacrifice? Can you be worthy of your clansmen? At that time, the dwarf clan civilization will truly be extinct." Hearing Nian Bing's words, Halogen's eyes gradually lit up. That's right. What he needed now was to pass on the wisdom and knowledge of the dwarf clan, and not to sink into pain. Nian Bing's angry shout awakened Halogen's spirit. Looking at Nian Bing's eyes, he gradually had his own plan. Slapping away Nian Bing's hand, Halogen said, "Nian Bing, I'm leaving." Nian Bing didn't ask him to stay. Looking at the robust Halogen firmly walking out of his room, his face couldn't help but reveal a faint smile. Halogen already understood that he had the wisdom of the dwarf clan. Without asking, he had already begun to work hard to become the dwarf clan's king. Work hard to pass on everything of the dwarf clan. Unfortunately, the civilization of the lost continent was only passed down by the dwarf clan, but the elf clan and the humans of the lost continent were not so lucky. It seemed that the history of the lost continent would not be repeated after all. Only by bringing the civilization of the Yangon continent here could the lost continent glow with new vitality. And all of this had to be based on winning the war with the godly continent, otherwise all of the efforts would be in vain. Long Ling came in from the outside, holding a plate with a few red fruits on it. She walked in front of Nian Bing, put the fruits aside, and tidied up Nian Bing's slightly messy hair with her hand. She smiled and said, "Bing, don't think too much, there will be a way in front of the mountain, you have to take care of your body." Nian Bing's heart immediately warmed when he heard Long Ling's gentle words. He walked over to a chair and sat down. He pulled Long Ling to him and let her sit on his lap. He hugged her soft body and said softly, "Ling, I've really been too busy recently. It's inevitable that I've neglected you. Don't blame me, all right?" Long Ling smiled and said, "Fool, why would I blame you? You have your own things to do. But last time, you left us all to deal with the crisis when Morta's seal was opened. I was really angry. Feng Nu and Chen Chen were also very unhappy. Although we haven't officially married, we are already your wives. When faced with difficulties, how could you leave us? Nianbing, no matter what, don't do it again, okay? Nianbing nodded and said, Don't worry, I promise I won't leave you all. Whether in life or death, we will be together. Ling there are still 3 days before we set off. I want to use these 3 days to cultivate some of the abilities I have learned during this period. Don't let anyone disturb me. Although the time is very short, I think it should have some effect. Long Ling smiled gently and left Nian Bing's lap. Don't worry, you can cultivate. Unless there is something very important, I won't let anyone disturb you. Eat some fruit. This is the first fruit we planted on the Lost Continent. The nature magic of those nature magicians is really strange. The fruit trees that take a few years to mature, under the effect of their magic, actually bear fruit so quickly. No wonder the Longmu Empire is called the granary of the Yangon continent. Okay, I'm going out. If you need anything, just call me. My room is right next to yours. Chapter 231. Oh right, let me tell you a piece of good news. During this period of cultivation, my West Meridian acupoint seems to be showing signs of opening. Wait until I have the ability to use the innate Qi, then I should be able to reach level 12. After saying that, she quickly kissed Nian Bing's face, turned around and ran out. When she reached the door, she deliberately helped Nian Bing close the door. She picked up a fruit and put it into her mouth. The sweet juice stimulated Nian Bing's taste buds. Feeling the warmth on her face, Nian Bing suddenly realized that her choice was correct. If she had rejected Long Ling's feelings back then, this gentle girl would probably never be as happy as she was now. The godly mainland. Shi Jie stood respectfully in the canyon between 2 mountain peaks. He looked at the distorted air in front of him and did not even dare to breathe too loudly. He had been standing here for 3 days. Ever since he received the news from the gods who had returned from the Lost Continent, he had come here. At this moment, the various magic elements in the air were agitated. It was time for the magic storm again. However, these magic storms did not have any effect on Shi Jie. When the magic elements attacked a radius of 3 meters around him, they would be dispersed by an invisible energy. To an ordinary god, the magic storm might be a disaster. However, to Tai Chi, who stood at the top of the gods, the magic storm was not even an itch. After waiting here for 3 days, Shi Jie did not feel anxious at all. After such a long time was no longer important to him. Even if he had to stand here for 3 years, he would still wait without moving, let alone 3 days. It had been a long time since something made him think. However, this time, he had to think carefully because he did not want to miss out on anything. He did not want to let go of any opportunity. After Xia Yu returned that day, he sent hundreds of gods to the Lost Continent. They had almost covered 2/3 of the Lost Continent's territory, but the news they received was the same. Only a team of gods discovered the existence of the Lost Continent's inhabitant. But those people were so weak that he found it laughable. During the Great War of the Gods, he was already one of the strongest main gods on the god mainland. At that time, the valiant fighting style of the Lost Mainland had left a deep impression on him. Therefore, when he heard that Miordas's seal was still undone despite him sending so many experts, other than anger, he also felt a trace of fear. However, the news that he had just received caused this trace of fear to completely disappear. The threat of the Lost Continent no longer existed. The remaining tens of thousands of residents were just a joke to him. Even if he was alone, he could completely destroy them. But now, his heart, which had been silent for many years, was alive again. The God's Continent was indeed a very suitable place for cultivation. However, after tens of thousands of years, he could no longer endure the boredom. He no longer wanted to occupy the Lost Continent. That piece of barren land, to him, did not have much attraction. However, the information he obtained from Xia Yu regarding the Yangon continent was something that even the strongest deity like him couldn't help but be tempted. That was right. He possessed strength that was only second to a true god. Why would he continue to live a lonely life in this place? Why couldn't he live a more colorful life? It shouldn't be a difficult thing to lead the gods under him to occupy that prosperous continent. As long as he had the permission of the three true gods, then the entire world would be under his control. He would be a god, a great heavenly god. Those weak humans, they could only become the slaves of the gods. What could tens of thousands of slaves bring him? What could he be excited about in the Yangon continent? Before coming to this canyon, Shi Jie's heart was already burning. His heart, which had been silent because of his bitter cultivation, seemed to be burning. He needed to release it. Although Shi Jie couldn't wait to end the seal on the godly mainland, he didn't do so. As the strongest person among the gods, he knew very well what he should do at the right time. He definitely couldn't ruin his beautiful future because of a moment of rashness. The patience that he had accumulated for tens of thousands of years had long prevented him from making mistakes because of impulse. Therefore, he came here. "Have you been waiting here for a long time?" A strange voice sounded. It was difficult to tell whether the voice was male or female. Although the voice was gentle, it was much scarier than the surrounding magic storm in Shi Jie's ears. He hurriedly took a step forward and knelt on one knee. "No, I haven't been here for a long time. Waiting is the glory that God has bestowed upon me." The strange voice said indifferently, "We already know the purpose of your visit. On this continent, there is nothing that can escape our grasp. Order wants me to tell you that you can do whatever you want. We won't stop you. However, there's one thing that you must understand. If everything in this world is destroyed, then every place will become a hell like the godly mainland. At that time, even if you're a god, you can only walk towards destruction as the environment continues to change. With your age and ability, you should be very clear about the control of the degree." Shi Jie was stunned. He couldn't figure out the meaning of the voice's owner. He asked tentatively, "Then what should I do? Since we can't destroy it, then we—" The strange voice said, "I'll give you 2 words, order. As long as you let the place you want to go develop according to the order that you need, then you can become the master of that place. Killing won't solve everything. In our previous world, there were many thought-provoking great literature. One of the words was to convince people with virtue. Only by controlling the hearts of humans and instilling your order into them can you truly become their god. As for what to do, it's up to you to figure it out yourself. From now on, the matters of you gods have nothing to do with us. We won't care about you anymore. Even though the gods could be said to have been created by us, and even this most suitable place for you humans to cultivate was created because of us, we are no longer interested in you humans. However, this is our home. Even if tens of thousands of years have passed, even if we might have to leave this place in the near future, we don't wish for this place to be completely destroyed." Shi Jie was slightly surprised. "Lord True Gods, are you leaving? Is this what the God of Time meant by exploring the unknown world?" The Time God said indifferently, "Haven't you been waiting for this day for a long time? Once we leave this world, you can become the true master of this world." When Shi Jie heard this, he immediately said in fear, "No, why would I have such thoughts? Without the Lord True Gods, I wouldn't be who I am today. I can't bear for the Lord True Gods to leave." The Time God's tone was still emotionless. "You don't have to hide your ambition in front of me. It's meaningless and we won't care about it. But if the Lord True Gods leave, then Lord True God Cao," Shi Jie said worriedly. "That's what you're really worried about. That's right. Even if you're stronger, you won't be able to go against Cao. Even the 3 of us had to go through so many years to be able to compete with them. You don't have to worry about this. When we leave, it'll be the day we cut off all ties with Cao. In our hearts, if we can't solve their problems, How can we leave? Don't worry, Cow won't cause you any trouble. It won't be long before we cut off all ties. After 50,000 years of fighting, it's time for us to come to an end. Shi Jie was overjoyed, but his facial expression did not change. He bowed respectfully and said, "Then I'll take my leave first. Sir True Gods, please take care of yourselves. If there's anything you need me to do, please don't hesitate to let me know." After saying this, he slowly got up. He walked backward out of the canyon until he was completely out of the range of the canyon. Then, he floated up and disappeared in the blink of an eye. After Shi Jie left, 3 figures slowly emerged from the distorted air. A rough voice said, "Time, do you think this guy will do as we said?" The Time God smiled indifferently and said, "He will. Do you think everyone is like you, who only knows how to destroy? Shi Jie is a smart person. Otherwise, we wouldn't have chosen him to be the leader of the gods. A smart person won't do stupid things. Unless his strength can surpass the 3 of us, he won't do anything that displeases us. These gods have been silent under our restrictions for 10,000 years. It's time for them to break out. Poor Yangon continent. If we weren't about to leave this place, I'd be reluctant to let it leave its original orbit." A lazy voice was heard. "Time, don't underestimate this Shi Jie. He's been working hard to break through his Tian Yin acupoint. The human body is very mysterious. If he really opens all 7 acupoints, he might be able to reach our level after a long period of cultivation. After we settle the matter with Cao and Tian Xiang, this person can't be left alive." The Time God laughed. "Order, although you're the most powerful one among us, your desire to fight is no less than destruction's. Do you think Shi Jie's strength will affect us? Even with the best estimation, he can only contend with one of us at most. Now, what we need is a rich and colorful life. I'm more and more looking forward to leaving this world and experiencing the wonderful feeling of a new one. The battle here is meaningless to me. We're gods, not humans. You should be more relaxed. Actually, I didn't agree with how you dealt with the lost continent back then. You completely destroyed that civilization and caused many wonderful things to disappear. So what if the lost continent developed for 10,000 years? Can it really be compared to us? No, it's impossible for them to do it. How can the technology of our era be studied thoroughly by the people of today? There are many things that can't be regained once lost." The God of Order said coldly, "What do you know? I'm being cautious. Anything that can threaten us has to be avoided. Whether it's the lost continent or the white people of Yangon continent. Don't you know how strong the gods of the gods are? This time, 2 gods went to Yangon continent but couldn't stop Miordas from opening the seal. A god was killed by a human using spiritual power. What does this mean? Spiritual power that can kill a god. If it's even stronger, it'll be enough to threaten us. If I'm not wrong, that human must be the boy I saw at Cow's place last time. Are you blaming me for being cautious? If that boy is as strong as us and joins forces with Cao and Tian Xiang, then our chance of victory won't exist. Cao and Tian Xiang are the same as us. They've survived from the previous world until now. How can they not have plans? This time, when Shi Jie and the others go to the lost continent, I'll let them kill that boy first. Then, we'll challenge Cao and Tian Xiang. That way, they won't have any chance." The God of Time frowned and said, "That's possible. However, do you think it's easy for a human's spiritual power to reach our level? Moreover, with our strength, we can completely prevent his spiritual power from unleashing its full potential. If his overall strength can't reach our level, he'll only be a burden to Cao and Tian Xiang. Therefore, I don't think there's anything to worry about." Order. When we were first created, you were originally half a level higher than us. Even then, you should be able to contend with either Cao or Tian Xiang. However, do you know why you're still stuck at our level? It's because your heart is too small and can't contain anything. If we weren't strong enough now, there would be too many things in the world that could threaten us. Do you want to destroy them all? Instead of putting your mind on this, why don't you think of ways to increase your strength? Originally, we weren't as strong as the god of emotions. However, can't we also reach the level of the god of emotions through cultivation? Working hard to improve oneself starts from the mind. You're still too obsessed. Actually, the gods that we call ourselves aren't true gods. When we were created, the father of technology who created us once said that when the god of emotions truly appears, when the power of level 18 is revealed, then he will become the ruler of the entire world and become a true god. Therefore, only the god of emotions is a true god. As for us, the only difference between us and those gods is the difference in strength. We just gave ourselves a nice name, that's all. The god of order said with some dissatisfaction, "Time, what's wrong with you today? I feel that your emotions are a little off. You usually don't have so many opinions and emotions." Among the three great true gods, the god of order had always been the leader. The god of destruction and the god of time would usually listen to his opinions. Sometimes, the god of destruction would even raise his own opinions. However, the god of time rarely spoke and spent most of his time on cultivation. Today, when the god of order was preparing to come out and communicate with the she-world, the god of time took the initiative to speak with the she-world. According to the original intention of the god of order, the state of the Yangon continent was not important to them. Anyway, they were about to leave this world, so what did it matter what the Yangon continent became? However, the god of time had said those words to the she-world. Now, he had clarified his own point of view. It was obvious that he was dissatisfied with the god of order. This was the first time in tens of thousands of years. As the god of order who had always regarded himself as a god, the god of time's words were especially harsh. However, they had lived together for tens of thousands of years. They relied on each other. Although he was dissatisfied, he would not really get angry with the god of time. The god of time sighed and said, "I don't know why, but you all know that I control the power of time. I always have a faint premonition about the future. Yesterday, when I was cultivating, I had a feeling that some of the situations that might arise in the future. Order, we are brothers. Frankly speaking, this premonition is not very good. Perhaps, some things that we can't consider will not happen. If that's really the case, our original plan to have a duel with Cao and Tianxiang should be pushed back." The god of order was shocked. Of course, he knew that the god of time's premonition had always been very accurate. Although it was vague, it had played an important role for the three of them many times. This was also one of the reasons why the god of order respected the god of time. The time that they had originally set. It was to issue a final challenge to Cao and Tianxiang a year later. However, now that the god of time had said this, the god of time was even more worried. Even the god of order was a little nervous. He frowned and said, "You mean to say that Cao and Tianxiang might be able to fuse with the power of the god of emotions in the near future? How is that possible? It's been 50,000 years. Although their strength has been increasing, it's a little too exaggerated to say that they can comprehend the true essence of the god of emotions. You also know that it's not something that can be achieved by increasing one's strength. It requires an instant comprehension. At our level, it's not easy to have an epiphany. Even if another 50,000 years pass, I'm afraid they won't be able to comprehend anything. After all, the god of emotions is only a half-finished product." The god of time glanced at the god of order and said, "Do you still remember how the father of technology who created us died?" The god of order nodded and said, "Of course I remember. Although many years have passed, I will never forget that scene. The father of technology who created us died in laughter. Even after death, I could still feel the excitement on his body." The god of time looked at the god of order and said, "Then think carefully about the scene at that time. You should remember that when the father of technology first created us, His eyes were full of disappointment when he looked at us for the first time. Because he knew that the three superpowers that he had spent so much effort to create still lost to his old rival, the god of emotions created by the father of evolution. At that time, he said that he had lost because he had exhausted his strength. At that time, he had already reached the end of his life. The only thing that could support him was a belief in his heart. He wanted to see what the god of emotions created by the father of evolution was like. Later, he saw it. He also saw the powerful strength of Cao and Tianxiang and the process of switching. It was at that moment that he laughed and died. Think about the last sentence he said before he mastered it. In my premonition yesterday, I clearly heard this sentence again. However, the voice in my premonition was no longer excited, but full of sadness. The god of order was stunned. Just as he was about to speak, the god of destruction beside him said, "When the father of technology died, he was laughing and saying that he was wrong, he was wrong, he was actually wrong. He actually made a mistake in such a small detail." This meant that the god of emotions he created could only be a half-finished product forever. Ha 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 ha, so he and I are still at the same level. Ridiculous. Ridiculous. Really ridiculous. I didn't expect that he would make such a mistake when he was about to win. It was this mistake that caused him to fail. I didn't lose, I didn't lose. Ha 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 ha. Silence. When the god of destruction finished repeating the words that were so clear in their memories, the three true gods fell into silence. After a long time, the god of time spoke again. "This is what I predicted." However, in my premonition, not only did the tone of this sentence change, but it also changed a few words. The last few words. The father of technology originally said that he didn't lose, but now he said that I lost. Although it was only a change of 3 words, what did it bring us? Think about it. Under what circumstances would the father of technology say this? The father of human evolution died after he created the god of emotions. According to what Cao said in the battle with us, the father of human evolution died with his eyes wide open. At that time, he seemed to want to say something to Cao and Tianxiang, but in the end, he overdrew his life force and didn't say anything. I think that whether it was the father of human evolution or the father of technology who created us, they both knew what the problem was with the god of emotions. Therefore, although the father of technology said in the end that the god of emotions would always be a half-finished product, however, I think that under certain circumstances, the real god of emotions may appear. You all know my premonition ability very well. This prophecy was clearer than any of the previous ones, which showed how deeply it affected us. My prophecies usually happen within 1 to 3 years. This time period is something that I've calculated after a lot of calculations. In other words, in the next 1 to 3 years, the real god of emotions is likely to appear. As for why he can appear, and how Cao and Tianxiang understood it, to us, these are all unknown. Unknown things. They are always the most terrifying things. You all know this. Therefore, if we still want to win and live a life of our own in the future, then. Therefore, he had to challenge them within a year. Only then can we have the possibility of winning. The god of order said with some concern, "I won't doubt your premonition. However, you also know that the shortest time to practice our 3-in-1 skill is 1 year. Only by perfecting this skill, only then can we have the confidence to destroy Cao and Tianxiang without perishing." The longer they lived, the more they valued life. As early as 10,000 years ago, the combined strength of the 3 of them had already surpassed Cao and Tianxiang. However, Cao and Tianxiang had the strength to perish together at the last moment. Therefore, every time they won the decisive battle, they were never able to deal a fatal blow to Cao and Tianxiang. Although in the past 10,000 years, they were more and more confident, and gradually widened the gap between Cao and Tianxiang. However, even now, their most optimistic estimate of their strength was that they could only kill 2 people while destroying Cao and Tianxiang. This was a price they couldn't afford to pay. After continuous efforts, they developed a special method that could link all three of their lives and abilities into one. Once successful, they were confident that they could kill Cao and Tianxiang without killing them, and split the damage between the three of them. The god of time looked at the god of order and the god of destruction and said, "Therefore, what we need to work on now is to perfect the 3-in-1 skill within a year, and then immediately challenge Cao and Tianxiang. These days, I have some special insights, and it may not be impossible to succeed within a year. Order, it is also because of this reason that I emphasized the change of your temperament. In the Trinity fusion technique, you are the key to the connection. Your abilities are the most important. If you can change your temperament, it will be of great help to us. I don't talk much, and you all know this. Today, I have said so much because I am afraid of the uncertainty of our future. Listen to me, Order, it's time for you to change." The god of order looked at the god of time. It was not until now that he completely understood that everything the god of time said today was for him, and also for the three of them. He nodded and said, "It is easy to change mountains and rivers, but difficult to change one's nature. I can only do my best for our future. Time, perhaps you are right, but why didn't you tell me this earlier?" The god of time smiled bitterly and said, "Tell you earlier? Would you be able to listen? I'm afraid that most of those gods' arrogant temperaments were learned from you. If it weren't for today's special conditions, you wouldn't have listened to me. It is not too late to change now. We still have one last chance. I don't know what Cao and Tianxiang are doing. Perhaps they also have a premonition. The land of God, the realm of life." Cao floated above the lake of life, looking at the green water under his feet and thinking in silence. The aura of life in the realm of life was still so abundant. Not far from the shore, all kinds of plants were thriving. Cao's deep and beautiful eyes revealed a trace of confusion, as if she couldn't make up her mind about something. Even the life aura around her began to fluctuate unstably. This kind of situation rarely happened to her. A faint green light lit up from Cao's left hand, and a small bottle appeared out of thin air. She opened the bottle and took a deep breath of the fragrance coming from the bottle. Cao's flawless face couldn't help but reveal a faint smile. This rich fragrance smelled so comfortable. It was the 100-flower dew that Nianbing had brewed for her. Ever since she had the 100-flower dew, Cao's life had changed a little. Her habit of eating flowers had disappeared, but not because she didn't want to ruin the beauty of flowers. Ever since she had the 100-flower dew, she no longer had any interest in eating flowers. The taste of the 100-flower dew had become her only hobby. She had tried to learn how to concoct the 100-blossom dew when Nianbing had concocted it. However, the process was extremely complicated, and the time and temperature of the concoction were extremely strict. Even Nianbing had spent a lot of effort to successfully concoct it. Cao had tried to brew it according to Nianbing's method, but no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't make the same taste as Nianbing's. This made Cao very depressed. So now, she couldn't bear to drink the 100-flower dew anymore. She treated the rest of the 100-flower dew as her most precious thing, and only smelled it once every day. Under the protection of her huge life force, she wasn't afraid that the 100-flower dew would evaporate. Feeling the fragrance of the 100-flower dew with satisfaction, Cao couldn't help but think of the first time Nianbing cooked for her. She still remembered that the dish Nianbing made was called Icefire glass pearl, which tasted very delicious. Later, during the days that Nianbing stayed here, she could taste some delicious dishes every day. Although the materials that Nianbing brought were limited and she could only eat some simple things later, Cao found that those days were the happiest in her 50,000 years. Every time she saw Nianbing focus on brewing the 100-flower dew or cooking, she would feel an inexplicable sense of satisfaction in her heart. Nianbing hadn't been gone for long, but Cao had a strange feeling in her heart. She didn't know that in the human world, this feeling was called longing. When he thought of Nianbing, He couldn't help but think of everything that had happened with Nian Bing in the lake. Although it hadn't been that long, the wonderful feeling at that time filled Cao's heart with nostalgia. It was because of that memory that he missed Nian Bing even more. However, she was a little afraid now. That was because she had already made up her mind when she first met Nian Bing. She had made up her mind to survive. It was destined that she could only use Nian Bing. Chapter 232. Tian Xiang smiled and said, "Why not? Actually, I'm the same as you. I often think of him. It seems that he really left a deep impression on us. He did a lot of things after returning to the Yangon continent. However, he's going to be in trouble soon. The gods on the godly mainland have already made their move. It seems that the three guys from the order have decided not to restrain these gods anymore. Should we intervene in such a matter?" Cao shook his head and said, "You already know that we can't intervene, so why are you still saying this to me? Tian Xiang, we're originally one. Although we have different souls and different energies, we share the same body. But we have the same body. What I feel is also what you feel. In the beginning, I was still annoyed when you used him to make fun of me, but I won't anymore. Because you've also experienced everything that I've experienced. I have to admit that I miss the time I spent with him and the feelings he made me feel. However, don't you miss it too? You're only making fun of me to cover up your fear. Actually, your heart has already wavered, right?" "Nonsense." Tian Xiang was a little annoyed. At this moment, her voice was no longer seductive. "Why would I waver? Don't forget that it's related to our life and death. In this world, three-legged toads are rare, but two-legged men are everywhere. Once we've dealt with those three guys with our beauty, what kind of man can't we find?" Cao smiled and said, "Don't deceive yourself. Our thoughts are actually similar, but our determination hasn't changed. Therefore, you don't have to hide it in front of me. I won't hide anything either. Perhaps he can only become our reminiscence. Tian Xiang, you should have felt it when we go to the Shi world to find those three guys. On the godly mainland, there's nothing that can hide from our senses except for those three guys. What do you think those three guys will say to the Shi world?" Tian Xiang was silent for a while before she said, "I can't guess. However, I can be sure that those three guys aren't far away from making a move on us. Once they break their agreement with us to set the time. This means that they have absolute confidence that they can completely destroy us and make us disappear from this world. This is something neither you nor I want to see, so it's time for us to cultivate. This time we must succeed. You're right, we haven't changed our minds. In fact, when Nian Bing kissed us for the first time, he stole our first kiss at the same time. At that moment I already knew that you were right. Actually, it's good for us to maintain our current mentality. Only with such a mindset can we succeed." Cao smiled faintly and said, "Let's keep everything as memories. We'll prepare for a while more, and it's time for us to set off." Now, he could only hope that those three fellows would find out a little later. "Oh, right, your long-range perception is stronger than mine. You must pay attention to Nian Bing's situation. We can't let him get hurt for real." Tian Xiang said, "Don't worry, I will. From the time he left here until now, his every move is under my surveillance. Do you want me to describe to you the scene when he and his wife made love? You've also experienced it. Nian Bing is really strong in that aspect." "Go to hell," Cao said while gnashing his teeth. Tian Xiang finally turned the tables and said with a smile, "If I die, won't you die too? I've already thought of a way for us to implement it. The possibility of success has increased a lot. Although Nian Bing was sacrificed, it can be considered his luck to be able to achieve us. At least, we will never forget his existence. Unfortunately, we can't even leave his soul behind. Speaking of which, don't you think we look like man-eating goblins?" Cao was silent, and a trace of genuine sadness appeared in his eyes. "If I could choose, I really don't want it to be like this. However, we have no choice." Tian Xiang smiled and said, "All right, since you don't have a choice, don't be so sentimental. This isn't your style. Nian Bing won't die so easily. Although our progress in these tens of thousands of years is not as fast as those three fellows, we have accumulated a lot of pure life and death energy. Although we can't use this energy, we gave it all to Nian Bing. With the life orb and death orb in his body, unless it's us or those three fellows from order, time and destruction, no one can kill him. We just need to pay attention to his cultivation situation and make sure that there aren't any changes. Far away in the lost continent, Nian Bing, who was cultivating, was unaware that his every move was being monitored. After Long Ling left the room, he began the process of cultivation. The time was very short, only 3 days. Within 3 days, Nian Bing naturally did not expect to have a qualitative leap. However, in this period of time, his strength had improved in all aspects. Although these 3 days could not be used to improve, it could be used to adjust his strength to the best state. This could also improve his overall strength. Nian Bing's first cultivation was to fully sense his own acupuncture point. Because, after he felt that his West Meridian acupuncture point's ability to absorb Xiantian Qi had greatly increased, he always felt that his West Meridian acupuncture point was about to change. Of course, it was a good change. Even Nian Bing found it hard to believe that in such a short period of time, his West Meridian acupuncture point was about to enter the final realm. Nian Bing had already opened 5 acupuncture points. When the Extreme Emperor acupuncture point and the Heavenly Eye acupuncture point were still in one, his powers could only reach level 13 at most. Only with the help of the 7 super god weapons could he possibly kill a level 13 god. However, after he boldly tested the Emperor acupuncture point and Heaven's Eye acupuncture point to its current state, with 5 acupuncture points including Heaven's Eye and Emperor acupuncture points, he directly charged to level 14. Even if it was a master god, Nian Bing would not have any fear. Of the 7 aperture points, the most important were the Huangji acupoint and the Tianyan acupoint, followed by the West Meridian acupoint and the Lizhong acupoint. These 4 aperture points changed the owner's strength from the very beginning. However, the Fang Jia acupuncture point, Cloud Listening acupuncture point and Earth Spirit acupuncture point, which were only used for defense, hearing and speed, were slightly inferior. Compared to the previous 4 acupuncture points, they were slightly inferior. Nian Bing had already opened 5 acupuncture points, including the Heaven's Eye, Emperor acupuncture point, West Meridian acupuncture point and Lizhong acupuncture point. Moreover, his Heaven's Eye acupuncture point and Emperor acupuncture point had already reached the ultimate realm under special circumstances, not to mention the strange combination of 2 acupuncture points. In terms of spiritual energy, even Nian Bing did not know how much he had improved. Ever since he had used the method of exploding acupuncture points to open the combination of the 2 acupuncture points, he had discovered his control of magic had reached a whole new level. He could even control every magical element so precisely that he could use it for his own use. For the past few months, Nian Bing had not stopped cultivating. Now, he had gradually grasped the secrets of the ultimate Heaven's Eye acupuncture point and Emperor acupuncture point. Under the influence of his will, Nian Bing urged his spiritual energy to enter the Heaven's Eye acupuncture point between his eyebrows, leaving all his senses there. Ever since the 2 acupuncture points entered the half-open state, he could only feel a golden haze between his eyebrows. His spiritual energy seemed to have become something that could not be quantified. By leaving all his senses there, he could precisely control the energy in his body and everything around him. His spiritual energy was slowly released, although his eyes were closed. Everything around him gradually became clear. With the expansion of his spiritual energy, Nian Bing gradually saw the people of the Ice Moon Empire who were busy around him. He saw Long Ling, Feng Nu and Lan Chen who were cultivating, and he also saw Halogen. The expansion of his spiritual energy was very fast, but Nian Bing did not explore any further. What he needed now was to integrate his own strength, not to explore. His spiritual energy was released and then retracted. Under Nian Bing's control, it surged toward his chest. He could clearly see every minute change in his body. The Li Zhong acupuncture point on his chest, the West Meridian acupuncture point on his lower abdomen, and the Fang Jia acupuncture point on his back. They were all enveloped by his spiritual energy. Nian Bing discovered that no matter which acupuncture point it was, if it was not illuminated by the light of the Huangji acupuncture point, when the energy in the acupuncture point reached its ultimate level, its own light would turn golden. Before that, the light was milky white. After exploding his acupuncture point last time, Nian Bing discovered the changes in his other 3 acupuncture points. The milky white light of these 3 acupuncture points had become much thicker than before. Moreover, there was already some golden light mixed in. Although there was no one who could guide him in the cultivation of his acupuncture points, Nian Bing vaguely understood that these 3 acupuncture points of his were already developing towards their ultimate level. The acupuncture points of the ultimate level were completely different from those of the middle level. The effect of the acupuncture points could be maximized. Whether it was the Li Zhong acupuncture point, which condensed energy, or the West Meridian acupuncture point, which controlled Xiantian Qi, this point was very obvious. Even the defense of the Fang Jia acupuncture point after reaching its ultimate level was bound to be much stronger than it was now at the middle level. Unfortunately, there was no time for him to continue cultivating. Otherwise, Nian Bing was confident that he could reach the realm of all 7 acupuncture points in the near future. When he reached that realm, the 5 main gods would no longer be a fatal threat. How could he make these 3 acupuncture points break through their current bottlenecks? Nian Bing pondered. As he pondered, he urged his spiritual power to scan the different energies in the acupuncture point. Every time he scanned, he was extra careful. He was afraid that his spiritual power would affect the changes in the energy in his body and cause undesirable consequences. Nian Bing was very clear that after he had the power of all 5 acupuncture points, there was no one in the Yangon continent who could compete with him. At the same time, this also meant that he would become the most important part in the battle against the godly continent. Therefore, he could not afford to have any mishaps. Otherwise, this battle would be lost before it even started. Therefore, every time he probed, he would restrain the qi of the Huangji acupuncture point in his spiritual power. Then, he would enter the acupuncture points to observe carefully. After a brief observation of the acupuncture points, Nian Bing immediately dismissed the idea. No matter which acupuncture point it was, the energy in the acupuncture points was extremely condensed. He did not know what to do to cause a qualitative change in the energy. Nian Bing also thought of trying to stimulate the energy in the acupuncture points, but he also understood that luck could not be with him forever. It would be very difficult for him to achieve such an excellent result like the last time when he exploded the acupuncture points. In the process of stimulating the energy in the acupuncture points, if he was not careful, it was very likely to have the opposite effect. In that case, the gains would not make up for the losses. Therefore, after weighing the pros and cons, he decided not to give up on the idea of helping the acupuncture points to reach their ultimate level. Now that he had reached the bottleneck, only through continuous cultivation and letting them evolve naturally was the safest way. Thinking of this, he carefully withdrew his spiritual power from the acupuncture points and moved it to the magic light in his chest. After opening the West Meridian acupuncture point, the consumption of his mana for instantaneous magic had been reduced by several times. The magic elements in his body only needed to be stimulated, and it was enough. He did not need to rely solely on the mana to launch magic. The Li Zhong acupuncture point could also play the role of compressing and restraining the congenital qi outside his body. This was also the reason why his strength could make a qualitative leap after opening these 2 acupuncture points. Cao had once told him that there were no true incantations for magic beyond the 14th level. When casting magic of that level, the control of one's own spiritual power played a very important role. The attack power of magic beyond the 14th level was in the form of pure energy. Nian Bing's magic was very special. It used the same source of ice and fire to achieve the effect of using 7 elemental magic. Now, his 7 elemental magic was no longer as simple as mimicry, but true 7 elemental magic. The first time Nian Bing felt that he did not need to rely on mimicry to cast 7 elemental magic was when his celestial eye acupuncture point reached the middle stage. The celestial eye acupuncture point's ability to sense energy had deepened his understanding of the 7 elemental magic by many times. He could now fully understand the characteristics of every single magic element, which also allowed him to use the 7 elemental magic for his own use. The auxiliary effect of the 7 divine blades was fully displayed after the celestial eye acupuncture point reached the pinnacle and the west meridian acupuncture point appeared. This was especially reflected in the use of various elemental magic in the air. The west meridian acupuncture point could condense the purest magic elements into congenital qi for one's own use, and the 7 divine blades could greatly increase the speed at which congenital qi was condensed. Moreover, the aura of the 7 divine blades had long been connected with Nian Bing's. Even when using the 7 sword souls to attack and defend, this kind of amplification effect still existed. After thinking about it carefully, Nian Bing's confidence in himself increased significantly. He could faintly sense that even if he were to face the most powerful overgod, he would still be able to put up a fight with these advantages. However, what could he do in these short 3 days? It was not very possible for the acupuncture points to evolve to the pinnacle, and the increase in magical power required a long time of meditation to have an obvious effect. Moreover, under the situation where he could use the congenital qi outside his body, even if there was a slight increase in magical power, it would not have a big impact on his strength. As for the increase in his mental strength, Nian Bing was very clear. Now, the physical mental strength attack that he could release from his celestial eye acupuncture point was mixed with the domineering aura of the Huangji acupuncture point. In this aspect, except for the 4 true gods, there was probably no one in this world who could compare with him. However, Ling Nian Bing was troubled by the fact that although his mental strength was strong, he did not know how to cultivate it. In the past, when it was just the celestial eye acupuncture point, he could still have some ideas. However, the situation now was very complicated. For the celestial eye acupuncture point and the Huangji acupuncture point, although he could use them separately or launch a combined attack that originated from both the Huangji acupuncture point and the celestial eye acupuncture point, when it came to cultivation, Nian Bing completely did not know where to start. He only had these few abilities, and now he did not know how to cultivate them. Then, what could he do? What could he do in 3 days? Thinking of this, Nian Bing once again fell into deep thought. He constantly judged and thought about the various abilities that he had, and wanted to see how he could improve his abilities through a simple integration. This kind of thinking was painful. As his brain was working at a high speed, Nian Bing gradually entered a meditative state. He started meditating in the morning, and the process of thinking lasted until the evening of the same day. Nian Bing, who was sitting cross-legged on the bed, suddenly opened his eyes. There was a flash of light in his eyes, and the corner of his mouth revealed a knowing smile. A 7-colored light surged out from his celestial eye acupuncture point. With a flash of light, 7 divine swords appeared in front of him at the same time. Under the control of the celestial eye territory, they floated in midair. Looking at the 7 divine swords, Nian Bing split his mental strength into 7 parts and injected them into the swords at the same time. blue, red, green, yellow, silver, white, and gold light of the 7 colors lit up at the same time. 7 identical sword souls floated out and raised their hands at the same time, holding the divine swords that belonged to them. The sword souls of the 7 divine swords were obviously led by the Emperor Kurobutsu, the sword soul of the demon devouring sword. Among the 7 sword souls, only the Emperor Kurobutsu not only had intelligence, but also the ability to speak. At a glance, their bodies were completely identical to the 7 Yen Bing swords. They could only be distinguished from each other by the different auras and colors of energy that they exuded. Each sword soul was wearing a simple warrior's uniform. Their energy bodies were abnormally solid under the influence of Xiantian Qi, and were no longer illusory. The greatest advantage of these sword souls was that no matter how strong the blow or damage was, as long as the divine swords were still there, they could recover in a short time. This was the special characteristic of the divine swords. Compared to before they were reforged, these sword souls with intelligence recovered much faster. Moreover, because of the emergence of intelligence, they no longer relied on speed to attack. After the previous battle at the Ice Valley, Nianbing realized that he had underestimated the abilities of his saber souls when he carefully considered his gains and losses. Back then, when he was facing the attacks of the 9 gods, he would have been able to fend them off if he had used his own strength and the saber souls of the 7 divine sabers. It was not that he did not have the ability to fight. However, because he did not have the ability to attack with spiritual energy, Nianbing did not have a strong grasp of the sword souls. Therefore, he chose to withdraw the sword souls and use the special magic defense that Cao had taught him. Later on, when he thought back, he realized that if he had used the sword soul's ability in time, the situation would have been easier. Looking at the 7 sword souls in front of him, he already had a plan for the remaining 2 days of cultivation. Senior Emperor Kurobutsu, I would like to ask you a question. Nianbing looked at Emperor Kurobutsu, whose body was covered in black light. Now, although Emperor Kurobutsu had given the demonic beasts that were originally kept in the demon-devouring sword to Kitty according to Nianbing's wishes, there was one more creature in his sword, and that was the underworld witch Safin. Evil Moon was gone, and Safin was not willing to see his big brother again. Moreover, after seeing Nianbing and the others' super strength, he realized that he was weak. Therefore, he decided to stay in the demon-devouring sword and use the dark energy in the demon-devouring sword to cultivate with Emperor Kurobut. After all, he was a body of energy, so it was perfect for him to be kept in the demon-devouring sword. Emperor Kurobutsu nodded and said, "Ask away." Nianbing had never treated the 7 sword souls as her summoning energy. Instead, she treated them as her friends and even elders. Although the sword souls of the other 6 divine swords did not have the ability to speak, Nianbing knew very well that the sword souls of these 6 swords were the 6 dwarven masters who sacrificed themselves to help her and Halogen. It was because she was afraid that they would be hurt that Nianbing did not use their full strength last time. Nianbing stood up and walked in front of the 7 sword souls and said, "Senior Emperor Kurobutsu, I want to know how strong you 7 sword souls are now. I am talking about using the 7 divine sword. Even if you are controlling the divine swords, the aura of the divine swords is connected to me. As long as you are within a certain distance, you don't need to wield the divine swords to get the amplification effect of magic. So, from now on, as long as the divine swords appear in battle, they will be completely controlled by you." Emperor Kurobutsu said without hesitation, "Last time when we were in the godly mainland, with the help of the Lake of Death, my strength is basically close to my previous state. The ability to support the divine swords can reach around the 13th level. The death energy in the Lake of Death is the purest. As you know, the death energy itself is a type of dark energy, so it is very helpful to me. So, during this period of time, I have been constantly cultivating in the demon-devouring sword and completely absorbing the death energy. Even if I don't use the demon-devouring sword, I should be at the 13th level. Back then, when I defeated the Dark Dragon King Kageyoshi, I was only at the 13th level. Now I am even stronger than before. If I support the demon-devouring sword, even if I can't reach the 14th level, I should not be far away. Back then, those overgods were afraid that I would be a threat to them after reaching the 14th level, and I was unwilling to submit to the godly mainland. So, they combined the power of several overgods to launch a powerful divine punishment and destroy my physical body. You are the master of the 7 divine swords, and your soul is connected to the 7 divine swords. As the souls of the swords, we naturally understand what you mean. Overall, because I was the previous master of the demon-devouring sword, and because I directly inserted the complete form of the demon-devouring sword into the sword, my strength is the strongest. Overall, I should be slightly weaker than the overgods of the godly mainland. As for the 6 of them, they are slightly weaker in terms of strength. The power of a single sword soul is around the 11th to 12th level, and with the power of the divine swords, they should be able to reach the peak of the 12th level, and have a strength close to that of the 13th level. So, to you, we can be considered a small army formed by the 7 sword souls. Because our attributes complement each other, when we attack together, there is a certain amount of bonus effect. When facing those overgods, if the 7 of us attack together, it shouldn't be a problem for us to block 2 overgods. If it's just one overgod, I'm confident that I can kill him within an hour. If it's 2 overgods, it's basically a tie. Any more than that, and it'll be easy for us to be defeated. The bonus effect I'm talking about is, of course, only manifested in your heavenly eye domain. Because it's only through your heavenly eye domain that our attributes complement each other can manifest. Nian Bing looked at Emperor Kurobutsu in shock. She couldn't help but be a little dazed. She never thought that there would be such a powerful person by her side who could fight against 2 overgods. Back then, when she faced Gu Long and Xiaoyu, why did she have to explode her acupuncture points? However, there was a flaw to sword souls, and that was that they could only appear when she released them. Only Emperor Kurobutsu could rely on his affinity with the demon-devouring blade to appear. However, after his strength gradually recovered and he no longer needed to absorb additional dark energy, it wouldn't appear so easily without his orders. That was why she had almost died at the hands of those 2 overgods last time. Looking at the 7 sword souls before her, Nian Bing could not help but smile bitterly. I never thought that you'd become so powerful already. You're much more powerful than me. Emperor Kurobutsu said indifferently, No, don't underestimate yourself. Your current strength isn't any weaker than our combined strength. Your greatest advantage is that you can use magic attacks at will. Now that you have the support of a physical spiritual attack, your strength has completely reached the level of an overgod. Nian Bing, there's something I need to remind you of. When I compared the overgods, I was referring to the 2 overgods last time. However, if my judgment is correct, among the 8 overgods, the 2 who came last time should be the weakest. There's also a huge gap in strength between overgod. The 2 who came last time had only opened 4 apertures. They only managed to reach rank 14 by relying on years of cultivation. As for the other overgods, the dragon god's strength should be at the mid-level of rank 14, which is only average among overgods. As for the other 5 overgods, each one of them is stronger than the last. They've probably opened at least 5 apertures, and their strength is very likely to have reached the mid-level of rank 14. If that's the case, the 7 of us can only deal with 1 overgod. As for you, you can only deal with 1 at most. Back then, I had a certain understanding of the continent of gods. As far as I know, among those overgods, there should be some who have opened 6 apertures. Although opening 7 apertures is the limit of a human's strength and is almost impossible to achieve, they've lived for tens of thousands of years. Using these tens of thousands of years, the most powerful overgod can completely cultivate all 6 apertures to the ultimate realm. In that case, his strength would probably be infinitely close to rank 15. Therefore, we must be careful. Chapter 233. Nian Bing could not help but frown when he heard Emperor Kurobutsu's words. Of course, he knew what the 6 ultimate chakras represented. After all, he himself had 5 chakras. Moreover, they were the 5 most effective chakras for increasing one's strength. If the opponent had a true god with 6 opened apertures, then this battle would be even more difficult. The difference between the 14th level and the 13th level was like heaven and earth, and the 15th level and the 14th level had a qualitative difference as well. Thinking of this, he could not help but feel more worried. Emperor Kurobutsu suddenly said, "Nian Bing, there's something I have to remind you of. Don't overestimate the strength of your spiritual energy physical attack. Last time, one of the 2 overgods was killed and the other injured by your spiritual energy attack, but that did not represent their true strength. To be able to reach level 14, one's spiritual energy is already very strong. If you are deliberately careful, even if you can use your physical spiritual energy to kill an overgod, you will definitely lose 800 of your own. You have to understand that physical spiritual energy is a double-edged sword. Do not use it unless you have no other choice. Once the enemy is too strong, even if his spiritual energy is not as strong as yours, your own spiritual energy will be greatly impacted after the physical spiritual energy attack. When that happens, the enemy will be dead, and you will not be able to attack for a short period of time. Among all of you, you are the true commander. A true battle is actually a battle between the strong. Therefore, no matter what the situation of this battle is, you have to maintain your own strength to adapt to all situations. Only under your leadership can we achieve true victory in this battle. Furthermore, without your help, even if you release us beforehand, our strength will be greatly reduced. You are the master of our 7 blades, and at the same time, the foundation of our blades. Therefore, during battle, you must not let your emotions affect your decisions. Back then, if I had been more tactful and careful in everything I did, we would not have ended up like this. This is my advice to you. I hope you will listen to it." Nian Bing nodded sincerely. He said, "Thank you, Emperor Kurobutsu. I will remember every word you say. After hearing what you said, my estimation of those gods has become more accurate. Now that you know what I'm thinking, we should begin. Time is of the essence. I hope that in these 2 days, both of us can make some improvement." Emperor Kurobutsu nodded. The other 6 blade souls nodded as well, and the 7 blade souls flashed. The 7 sword souls entered the bodies of the 7 sword souls at the same time. Their bodies emitted a layer of light that belonged to their respective elements, filling the room with the aura of the 7 elements. Because they all belonged to Nian Bing, under such circumstances, the elements that they emitted would not affect each other in any way. The heavenly eye domain spread out from between Nian Bing's eyebrows and instantly filled every corner of the stone house. Under the amplification effect of the heavenly eye domain, the light of the 7 sword souls suddenly became stronger. Their bodies flashed and surrounded Nian Bing, sitting cross-legged around him. Under such circumstances, each of them could directly obtain the same amplification effect from Nian Bing's heavenly eye domain. Sensing that the aura of the 7 sword souls had stabilized, Nian Bing also sat cross-legged on the ground. At this time, his mind was completely focused. Through the connection between his soul and the 7 sword souls, he could clearly feel that the 7 sword souls of the 7 sword souls had completely focused their aura on him. This way, he could have the most direct communication with them. Sitting cross-legged, he took a deep breath. Under the stimulation of his unusually strong mental strength, the light in his mind gradually flickered. A layer of faint golden halo flowed down from between his eyebrows and directly into his lower abdomen. Under the guidance of his mental strength, a mellow milky white light floated out, completely enveloping him and the 7 sword souls in a spherical shape. For a moment, the surrounding air gradually changed. Under the effect of the West Meridian acupoint, the purest innate chi gushed out from under his body. This was the essence of the earth. The first thing that happened was the melody of the earth's awakening. The light flickered, and the sword soul of the longevity saber suddenly burst out with a layer of emerald light. It merged with the yellow light of his body, and the yellow-green light covered the surface of his body. Then, as if infected, the light around the 7 sword souls lit up one after another. Nian Bing used the purest innate chi that he had absorbed and his incomparably strong mental strength to separate the innate chi according to their attribute. Then, through the earth beneath him, he condensed the innate chi into the 7 sword souls. Under the complete infusion of the innate chi, the light around the 7 sword souls grew brighter and brighter. Gradually, their original physical forms began to change. The clothes on his body disappeared, and 7 bodies that looked exactly like Nian Bing sat cross-legged around him. Every body was exactly the same, but their bodies were no longer solid. Instead, they were glowing like gemstones. Roar of the god of fire, righteous Yang Saber. The saber soul's entire body emitted a dazzling red light. The blazing light surrounded the saber soul's body, which seemed to be carved out of red gemstones, and constantly surged into its body. The other 6 saber souls were almost the same as the righteous Yang Saber's saber soul, except that the light they emitted was different. Sigh of the frozen goddess, Morning Dew Saber's saber soul, had turned into a bluish-white ice crystal body. Whisper of the wind of freedom, Proud Heaven Saber, had turned into a light green gale body. Tornado-like green energy constantly revolved around its body. Melody of Earth's awakening Longevity Saber's saber soul had turned into a yellowish-green gemstone body. The aura that was full of vitality was also affected by the life orb in Nian Bing's body. Although the yellowish-green light itself was not dazzling, because of the enormous aura of vitality, the feeling of being full of vitality filled the stone house with solidified life energy. If there was a seed in the room now, it would probably sprout in the midst of this enormous aura of vitality. The changes in the 6 lights of divine armament were the most obvious under the infusion of the enormous amount of Xiantian Qi. His body did not turn into a gem-like substance like the other saber souls. As the Xiantian Qi continued to flow into his body, the silver light around his body repeatedly brightened and dimmed. Every time the light flickered, the spatial saber soul would go through a process of disappearing and reappearing. It was as if his body had become even more illusory. When he disappeared, the 4 stars saber would appear in midair. The silver gemstone on the saber emitted a mysterious luster. His saber soul and the longevity saber's saber soul were in perfect harmony. The saber soul of the longevity saber emitted an aura of vitality, while the saber soul of the longevity saber emitted a holy aura. It was not only the holy energy of light magic, but also an invisible majesty. The surging holy aura and the longevity saber's aura of vitality complemented each other, infecting everything around them to the greatest extent. Emperor Kurobutsu was the calmest one. Although the clothes formed by energy on his body had disappeared, the changes in his body were the most inconspicuous. A layer of pure black mist appeared on his skin, which was the same color as Nian Bing's. Layers of faint black mist continued to condense and rise. Although the surrounding aura of vitality and holy energy were very strong, it did not affect Emperor Kurobut. The faint black mist around Emperor Kurobutsu's body was not affected at all. Although this layer of black mist was not obvious, if Evil Moon was here, he would definitely cry out in surprise. This was because this was the purest form of dark energy. Unlike the death energy in Nian Bing's ball of death, this energy did not have any evil or negative aura. It was pure dark energy. Regardless of whether it was a dark magician or a dark warrior, this purest form of dark energy was the ultimate goal that they pursued. Under the influence of the enormous Kanei Qi, This kind of energy appeared around Emperor Kurobutsu's body. Nian Bing's eyes were closed, but he could clearly see all the changes around him through his heavenly eye acupoint. With the West Meridian acupoint as the source of absorbing the Kane Chi, he first absorbed the Kane Chi into his body. After condensing it through the Lijiang acupoint, he used his mental strength to control it skillfully and infuse it into the 7 saber souls according to their different attribute. At this moment, the 7 saber souls were definitely the strongest they had ever been. However, this level was not stable because they did not have the ability to completely absorb the innate Qi. Because of this, Nian Bing had more important and more difficult things to do next. After a day of thinking, Nian Bing had figured out the direction of his cultivation for the next few days. Since it was not easy to increase his strength, he would work hard on the 7 saber souls. At least, he knew very well how the saber souls cultivated. Only the purest form of Kane Chi could increase their strength. Of course, this also depended on how much the saber souls could absorb. Therefore, before he started cultivating, Nian Bing carefully asked Emperor Kurobutsu about the current situation. It was precisely because of this that Nian Bing had directly injected Xiantian Qi into their bodies at the beginning. This was because they were all energy bodies that had surpassed Class 12, so receiving such a huge amount of Xiantian Qi wouldn't cause any harm to their bodies. What Nian Bing wanted to do now was to use his powerful mental strength to forcibly infuse the Kane Qi into the Saber Souls' bodies. He wanted to use the most forceful method to increase their strength. This was not only to increase the strength of the Saber Souls, but also to train his West Meridian acupoint and Lijiang acupoint. More importantly, under such circumstances, he could better understand the subtlety of combining his Huangji acupoint and Tianyan acupoint to activate his mental strength. This was because it was not an attack but an infusion. Therefore, there was no danger in integrating his powerful mental strength like this. After careful consideration, Nian Bing came up with this idea. He had found the best way to increase his strength in a short period of time. He was not trying to increase his strength fundamentally. Instead, he was trying to find a way to fully utilize the strength that he had already increased. At the same time, he could also help the 7 saber souls to increase their strength. This way, their overall strength would definitely increase to a certain extent. The 7 saber souls shone with different colors. As the Kane Chi continued to increase, the lights on their bodies became even more dazzling. The bodies of the 7 saber souls, who were originally calm, began to change. Apart from Emperor Kurobutsu, who was still able to maintain his previous stability, all the other saber souls began to tremble slightly. There was a limit to everything. The amount of Kane Chi they could control was related to the strength of their souls. The one with the most outstanding soul strength was undoubtedly Emperor Kurobut. However, the other 6 saber souls were about the same. At this moment, although the Kane Chi that was being injected into their bodies was not their own strength, it was almost reaching the limit that they could withstand. In a situation where their bodies could no longer bear the burden, their bodies would inevitably show signs of discomfort. At this moment, Nian Bing released 7 streams of mind energy and injected them into the bodies of the 7 saber souls. After his mind energy was injected, under the guidance of his soul, he quickly found the 7 saber souls. His mind energy carried the domineering aura of the Huangji acupoint and was easily integrated into the souls of the 7 saber souls. Nian Bing was doing 7 things at once. His mind energy was used at the same time, and the 6 saber souls that were trembling suddenly calmed down. With Nian Bing's help, the Kane Chi that was condensed around their bodies could now be easily controlled. Under Nian Bing's endless guidance, the Kane Chi continued to condense toward the 7 saber souls. He also divided his mind energy into 7 portions and continuously injected them into the saber souls. Together with the enhancement of the Kane Chi, the saber souls condensed the Kane Chi in their bodies. In this way, the physical changes of the saber souls became more and more obvious. From their original physical state to a crystalline state, they returned to their physical state. Under the effect of Nian Bing's mind energy, all the saber souls were stained with the domineering qi that came from the Huangji acupoint in his mind energy. In addition, Nian Bing used his own mind energy as the foundation to enhance their mind energy, increasing their endurance. When Nian Bing had injected about half of his mind energy into the saber souls, he stopped. This was because he knew very well that if he continued to inject Kanate Qi with his mind energy, the 7 saber souls would not be able to escape the fate of being killed by the Kanate Qi once his mind energy was withdrawn. Therefore, he first stopped the absorption of Kanate Qi from the West Meridian acupoint. Then, he carefully stopped the injection of his mind energy. This allowed the 7 saber souls to temporarily reach a state of equilibrium. Nian Bing did not know how much time had passed, but he could clearly feel that the Kanate Qi absorbed by his West Meridian acupoint had gone through a very long process. After he stopped the injection of energy, he carefully controlled his mind energy to maintain the saber souls. At the same time, he carefully observed their current situation through his Tian Yin acupoint. At this moment, the soul energy of the 7 saber souls was rapidly increasing under the effect of Nian Bing's mind energy. These saber souls had 2 roots. One was their own soul, and the other was the divine saber that they belonged to. The divine saber was their true root. As long as the divine saber existed, these saber souls could continue to exist. Nian Bing was sensitive to energy through his Tian Yin acupoint. He discovered that the saber soul's compatibility with the divine saber had become even more harmonious under the pressure of the surrounding Kanate Qi. Under such circumstances, the newly infused Xiantian Qi was gradually fusing with the abilities of the 7 saber souls of the 7 divine sabers. This could be said to be the fastest way to increase the power of the saber souls. However, Nian Bing was also very clear that this method was extremely dangerous. The souls of the saber souls were not cultivated by the divine sabers themselves. Instead, they were injected through a special forging method. Only He Wu Huang was an exception. He had chosen to infuse his soul into the saber through his own compatibility with the demon-devouring saber. Now, if he did not use his mind energy to control the Kanate Qi in the surroundings, perhaps even Emperor Kurobutsu would not be able to withstand the enormous amount of Kanate Qi. Therefore, what Nian Bing needed to do now was to use his mind energy to help these saber souls absorb as much Kanate Qi as possible and strengthen the strength of their souls. This was to better control the Kanate Qi. Every time their strength increased, they would be safer in the vast Xiantian Qi. After Nian Bing thought of this special cultivation method, he knew that he could only use it once. This was because if his mind energy was not so much stronger than the 7 saber souls combined, he would not be able to use this cultivation method for a long time. Once the saber soul's strength increased as a whole, if he wanted to use this method again, the first unlucky one would be Nian Bing. The saber soul's souls were closely related to him. If the Kanate Qi was too strong and caused a backlash, then the first unlucky one would be Nian Bing. Therefore, in this one and only chance, what Nian Bing needed to do was to increase the strength of these saber souls as much as possible. However, it was hard to say to what extent he could increase their strength. After all, it was 1 against 7. Although his mind energy was strong, there was still a limit to it. Time passed by slowly. The saber soul sect's speed of absorbing the Kanate Qi had been very slow for a long time. Even though Nian Bing had used the aura of the life sphere and the death sphere to help the 6 saber souls and Emperor Kurobutsu respectively, the effect was not very obvious. After all, it was not easy to increase the strength of one soul. Even so, the 7 sword souls were absorbing the innate qi for their own use at a much faster rate than usual. During the cultivation process, the most important thing was Nian Bing's mind energy. His mind energy was a bridge, a link. Without the support of his mind energy, it was impossible to use it. Looking at the situation before him, Nian Bing had a deeper understanding of the current state of his mind energy, as he used all sorts of methods to help the saber souls absorb the Kane Qi. He was pleasantly surprised to find that it was just as he had predicted. The ability that his mind energy now possessed was the result of the fusion of the Celestial Eye and the Ultimate Emperor Acupoint. Confidant's spiritual power was originally different from that of the Tian Yen Acupoint. After those few changes, the degree of condensation and energy of the spiritual power had far exceeded that of the Tian Yen Acupoint. Perhaps it was because the degree of condensation of his spiritual power was too high. That was why the Ultimate Emperor Acupoint had appeared in his mind energy. The appearance of the Ultimate Emperor Acupoint could be said to be accidental, but it could also be said to be inevitable due to the increase in his strength. Before the explosion of his acupoints, the reason why he could not use physical mind energy to attack was because the Ultimate Emperor Acupoint and the Celestial Eye Acupoint were in a miraculous process of fusion. However, during this process, the energy of the two acupoints was different. One was at the spiritual level, while the other was at the physical level. Although some of their similarities had been successfully fused, the differences between them were restricting each other. This made it so that although he could use a little of their abilities separately, he could not achieve the best result. However, the explosion of his acupoints coincidentally separated the differences, while the similarities were completely fused together. Through these similarities, the energy of the Celestial Eye Acupoint and the Ultimate Emperor Acupoint could undergo a miraculous transformation, just like when he had first cultivated the battle ice and fire magic. Therefore, through the Celestial Eye Acupoint and the Ultimate Emperor Acupoint, whether it was the application of magic or mind energy, he could make use of the characteristics of the two acupoints to achieve a very powerful level. He could also make use of the two acupoints to make different levels of attacks at will. There was a fundamental difference in the form of energy between a mind energy attack and a direct energy attack of the acupoint. Therefore, if he could make use of the opponent's mentality and make use of the variation of his attacks, he could achieve unexpected results. Therefore, during this period of time, Nian Bing's control of his two acupoints was much better than before. At the very least, he had figured out how to use his two acupoints under what circumstances. What effect could he achieve by making use of these characteristics? With the help of his mind energy, the seven sword souls were still slowly absorbing the innate qi that was condensed in their bodies. As their abilities increased, Nian Bing's mind energy became more and more difficult to control the wine. After all, the innate qi that Nian Bing channeled into the sword souls' bodies could be controlled by him. The stronger the sword soul was, the more resistance it would have to external mind energy control. Therefore, as it became more difficult to control, Nian Bing channeled more and more mind energy. When he had channeled as much as 90% of his mind energy, he stopped controlling the innate qi. Otherwise, if he was unable to retract his mind energy after channeling all of it, he would definitely suffer a crazy backlash from the innate qi. That would be a loss. As he stopped controlling the innate qi, Nian Bing retracted all of his mind energy almost instantly. At the same time, he retracted the Heavenly Eye territory and converted the amplification effect into defense and weakening. Just as he completed this, the seven sword souls' bodies suddenly shone brightly under the guidance of Nian Bing's mind energy. The seven moon souls' bodies radiated light that shot up into the sky. The stone house could not stop them at all. The roof immediately turned into dust and disappeared. 7 colorful lights shot up into the sky. The 7 sword souls let out a long shriek at the same time. Without the control of their mind energy, the excess innate qi in their bodies could only be released on its own. The innate qi that they had already absorbed became a part of their bodies. Within 3 short days, The seven sword soul's abilities had increased significantly with Nian Bing's help. Even Seifen, who was cultivating in Emperor Kurobutsu's body, had benefited greatly. Although this method of cultivation could not be repeated, Nian Bing still managed to grab hold of the opportunity. There was a qualitative leap in their abilities within a short period of time. The seven colorful lights that shot up into the sky immediately attracted the attention of the surrounding warriors of the Ice Moon Empire. The enormous and terrifying power immediately attracted their attention beyond the stone house that Nian Bing was in. Long Ling had been waiting outside for 3 whole days. During this time, she wanted to send some food to Nian Bing. However, every time she touched the door of the stone house, she would clearly feel an unusually large amount of magical energy. It seemed to be the energy of the barrier. She was afraid that she would disturb Nian Bing. Furthermore, she did not have the ability to open the stone door. Therefore, she could only wait outside the door. The sudden appearance of the colorful lights and intense magical elemental vibrations shocked Long Ling. She only felt relieved when she saw the attributes that the 7 lights represented. She secretly guessed that in these 3 short days, Nian Bing might have made another breakthrough. When the stone door opened, the dense magical aura caused a magical storm to appear within a radius of 1,000 feet. Fortunately, Long Ling's strength had already reached the level of Archmage. She would not be hurt by the unstable magical elemental energy. However, she still felt a little uncomfortable. Nian Bing walked out of the stone house with his upper body naked. Long Ling saw him for the first time and saw the fatigue on his face. "Bing, are you okay?" Long Ling walked to Nian Bing's side and held his arm. When she felt the wet and warm skin on Nian Bing's arm, she could not help but blush slightly. Nian Bing smiled and said, "It's nothing. I'm just a little tired." Circulating his spiritual power continuously for 3 days to compress the innate chi of the 7 blade souls. Perhaps only someone with his abnormal spiritual power could do such a thing. Using up a large amount of spiritual power would naturally make one feel tired. However, with the strength of his spiritual power and his 5 apertures, it would not take long for him to return to normal. "Ling have Feng Nu and Chun Chun finished their cultivation?" "We finished yesterday." Light flickered and 2 beautiful figures came to Nian Bing's side. How could they not be alarmed by such a strong magic fluctuation? Feng Nu and Lan Chun appeared in front of Nian Bing. Their charming faces were more radiant. It was obvious that their strength had improved. Nian Bing smiled and said, "How was it? Did the heart of the phoenix help you reach the 9 transformations of the phoenix?" Feng Nu smiled bitterly and said, "How could it be so simple? Chun Chun and I tried. We don't know why, but we clearly fused the heart of the phoenix with our bodies. But for some reason, we couldn't really absorb the energy. Although our strength increased a little, we still couldn't reach the 9th transformation. Perhaps this final 9th transformation requires some special conditions." Nian Bing nodded and said, "It's fine. You can't be too hasty with your cultivation. Otherwise there will be adverse effects. Time waits for no one. How is the situation of the 4 countries' armies?" Just as he asked this, he saw Mu Jing and Luo Ro rushing over. The 2 girls came in front of Nian Bing. Ling Nian Bing was a little embarrassed because they first looked at the 3 girls beside Nian Bing, then looked at Nian Bing with inquiring eyes. Nian Bing shrugged and said, "I'm fine. How is the mobilization of your army?" Mu Jing said, "Big brother, the army has been assembled and can be deployed at any time. Prince Rong's army has also arrived. What do you think, when should we leave?" Nian Bing said, "Since that's the case, let's leave now. The sooner we get there, the sooner we can make preparations." Luo Ro and Mu Jing nodded at the same time. Nian Bing didn't dare to look at the tears in their eyes. In front of Feng Nu, Lan Chun, and Long Ling, he really hoped that Luo Ro and Mu Jing would leave quickly so that they wouldn't bring any more trouble to him. At this moment, Lan Chun suddenly said, "Wait, Nian Bing, Mom and Dad aren't here yet. Should we wait for them?" Nian Bing's heart skipped a beat and he said in surprise, "They aren't here yet? Could it be that they were delayed by something?" He had already notified the Ice God Tower. According to the time, Rong Tian and Bing Ling should have arrived on the day he went into seclusion. When he heard that his parents hadn't arrived yet, he couldn't help but reveal a trace of anxiety. The strength that his parents brought to him wasn't the most important thing, but at this critical moment, he didn't want his parents to suffer any harm. Lan Chun hurriedly said, "Nian Bing, don't worry. With Mom and Dad's strength, unless they meet a god, nothing will happen to them. I have already chosen 20 magic experts from the Ice God Tower to welcome them. At the latest, there will be news from them tonight." Nian Bing forced a smile and said, "All right then. Let's wait until tonight before we set off. Jingjing, Rower, go back and prepare first. At the same time, inform my grandfather. I'll prepare the spatial teleportation formation first. Once the news from my parents comes, we'll leave immediately." Luo Ro said, "There's no rush. Our military supplies and troops are already in place. We can leave at any time. Nian Bing, why don't you go and take care of Uncle and Auntie? If anything happens outside, it'll be easy to deal with it. With us here, you can rest assured." Nian Bing was indeed worried, but he also had to preside over the overall situation. Hearing Luo Ro's words, he subconsciously nodded. He gave a meaningful glance to Feng Nu and Lan Chun and said, "All right, I'll also go and welcome them. I'll be back soon." While speaking, Nian Bing floated up. Kaka. When his body just reached the peak of his jump, a huge golden-gray figure appeared out of nowhere and just happened to support Nian Bing's body. With the increase of Kaka's strength, and Nian Bing not opening the Earth Spirit Cave, flying with Kaka's help was naturally much faster than flying alone. Chapter 234. Although he was a little anxious, every movement of Nian Bing's from the moment he jumped up to the moment he landed on Kaka's body was smooth and smooth. Coupled with his slender body and handsome appearance, Luo Ro and Mu Jing's eyes were full of splendor. Feng Nu at the side frowned, while Lan Chun helplessly shook his head. Only Long Ling didn't notice anything, because her eyes were also fixed on Nian Bing like Luo Ro and Mu Jing. The splendor in her beautiful eyes wasn't any less than theirs. There was another reason why Nian Bing summoned Kaka. Although his perception of spiritual power was much stronger than before in the past 3 days, the consumption of his spiritual power was not small. With Kaka flying and his mind connected with Kaka, Kaka would naturally pay attention to the appearance of Bing Ling and Rong Tian along the way. This way, Nian Bing could spare some energy to rest. The consumption of his spiritual power was under his control, and it wouldn't take too long for him to fully recover. Kaka's gray dragon body was shrouded in a layer of cyan light. That was because Nian Bing used the proud Heaven Blade as the foundation to cast a wind element magic on its body. This made Kaka's flying speed even faster. A layer of faint gray airflow automatically flowed out of the little dragon King Oscar's body, protecting Nian Bing's body. Nian Bing sat cross-legged on his back. Oscar's current body was formed by the dragon power he cultivated himself, and there was also a large amount of 7 types of innate qi injected by Nian Bing. A layer of dragon scales similar to Oscar's grew on Nian Bing's body. Although he was sitting cross-legged on Oscar's back, he wouldn't fall down no matter what Kaka did. After so many years of cultivation, Nian Bing's state of mind was extremely stable. Although she was anxious, she quickly entered a state of cultivation. Her tired mental energy stabilized and quickly recovered within her celestial eye and extreme emperor dual meridians. As her mental energy gradually condensed, Nian Bing's aura gradually stabilized. Kaka's ability to fly wasn't only based on his physical body. At the same time, he also relied on his non-elemental energy. Just like Nian Bing, he could control any type of magic element in the air. From a physical point of view, he was much weaker than his parent. After all, his current body was condensed from energy. Although he had cultivated the Dragon God Heart Sutra to a certain extent, the body condensed from energy was much weaker. However, he had an ability that Demanteti and Kajios didn't have. Because he was born in the same body as Nianbing, and his incubation was completed with the help of Nianbing. Therefore, Nianbing's ability had a great influence on him. As Oscar became more and more mature, this influence became more and more obvious. Although he didn't have the celestial eye meridians like Nianbing, he could calmly control magic elements through his non-elemental energy. Coupled with the dragon's unique dragon language magic, even Nianbing didn't fully understand his magic ability. Whether it was magic attack or magic defense, the other Dragon King might not be able to compare with him. When Nianbing's dual meridians merged and erupted, although Kaka was temporarily separated from her, however, the energy generated in that instant still gave Kaka great benefit. At this moment, his Dragon God Heart Sutra was even one step higher than his father, the Dark Dragon King Kagiosius. He had already reached the 6th step. Every time Nianbing's strength increased, it would promote Oscar's cultivation. Especially Nianbing's mental energy, it would often help Oscar to break through some bottlenecks of the Dragon God Heart Sutra. Therefore, the current Kaka's comprehensive strength was not much different from the other 6 Dragon King, except for Kajios. Of course, because he didn't have a physical body, he was also restricted to a certain extent. He could only exist within 1,000 feet of Nianbing. Otherwise, his energy body would dissipate without the innate qi absorbed by Nianbing, and his soul would return to Nianbing's body, according to the imprint. Once Nianbing entered a state of cultivation, her concept of time disappeared. She didn't know how long had passed, but Oscar's voice sounded in her heart, "Boss, wake up." Her mental energy once again changed from being restrained to being emitted, communicating with all the energy in her body. Nianbing opened her eyes. Her mental energy had unknowingly been completely restored. The various magic elements in the air freely soared. Through the celestial eye meridians, she could clearly see the form and strength of each magic element. This wonderful feeling made Ling Nianbing feel exceptionally comfortable. Needless to say, she could already feel the activity of the ice elements in the air. In the distance, dozens of blue lights were rapidly approaching her and Oscar's direction. She raised her head and looked at the sky. It was already afternoon. After flying for half a day, she finally found her parent. As the figures gradually got closer, Nianbing used her amazing eyesight to clearly see that the 2 people flying at the front were her father, Rong Tian, and her mother, Bing Ling. Rong Tian's pure fire magic couldn't fly, but with Bing Ling's magic cultivation, it wasn't difficult for her to fly with him. 20 ice magicians followed behind them in an orderly manner. Since she saw her parents, Rong Tian and Bing Ling naturally saw her as well. Bing Ling hurriedly sped up and flew forward. After a short while, she arrived in front of Nianbing and Oscar. "Nianbing, you must have been waiting for a long time." Rong Tian laughed heartily. When he saw his son riding on the dragon, he would feel a sense of pride. His son was so outstanding, how could he not feel satisfied? Nianbing welcomed her parents and said with a smile, "Dad, Mom, did anything happen to them? Fortunately, it's not too late. Let's go back quickly. It's time to set off." Rong Tian sighed and said, "We immediately set off after receiving your letter. I really didn't expect that the legendary lost continent would become like this. After that, your mother said that she wanted to wait for a while, then mysteriously went to do something. I only found out what she was doing when we set off. Thus, we were delayed for a few days." Nianbing looked at her mother with some doubt. On the surface, Bing Ling looked more like his elder sister than his mother. After all, time didn't leave any traces of wind and frost on her beautiful face. Bing Ling smiled and said, "Nianbing, this time I've helped you get a very big help. Moreover, I have a surprise for you. Senior sister, come out." Bing Ling and Rong Tian moved to the side. The ice magicians behind them also opened up a path in the air. Two figures floated forward and arrived in front of Nian Bing under the blizzard. Nian Bing stared at the two in shock. The one on the right was Bing Jie, who had pretended to be the priestess of the ice goddess for many years. Her face had changed, and she looked more ordinary than the priestess of the ice goddess. However, Nian Bing could never forget the aura on her body. She had the evil aura from the combination of the extreme Emperor Point and ice magic. Although her appearance wasn't as beautiful as her mother, she wasn't as cold as the priestess of the ice goddess. However, she had a sense of tranquility. At this moment, it was difficult to find a trace of the feeling she had in the past. Her smiling face revealed a happy expression. She seemed to be a few years older than his mother, and her beauty made her seem more like a good wife and mother. The smile on her face was so gentle. Compared to the time when she pretended to be the priestess of the ice goddess, it was as if she was a different person. Bing Jie's appearance wasn't the real reason why Ling Nian Bing was stunned. With Bing Jie's strength that wasn't weaker than the main gods, she would naturally be of great help to Nian Bing. However, the real reason why Ling Nian Bing was surprised was the person on Bing Jie's left. He was holding Bing Jie's hand and standing on top of the blizzard magic. There wasn't a trace of magic aura on his body, and he didn't give off a strong feeling. His somewhat aged face was abnormally rosy, and his almost dim eyes were full of smiles and sparkling tears. From the moment he appeared, his gaze never left Nian Bing's body. He just stared fixedly at Nian Bing's eyes that were constantly changing. "Master." Nian Bing's voice was slightly hoarse and sobbing. She knelt down on Oscar's back, tears streaming down her face. The one who appeared in front of him, holding hands with Bing Jie, was his master who had already passed away. For a moment, Nian Bing seemed to be in an illusion. His heart kept throbbing with pain. At this moment, he still thought that his eyes were playing tricks on him because of his longing for his master. "Child." Tears also flowed down Chaji's face. Looking at his valiant disciple, how could his heart not be moved? "Master." Nian Bing woke up at this moment. Looking at the clear figure in front of him, when he called out the second time, his voice was full of shock. "It's me, silly boy. I'm not dead. Although I'm not young anymore, I've been studying cooking for many years. Naturally, I have a way to maintain my health. How could I die so easily? You silly boy, that fire almost burned me to death." Chaji's eyes were still flowing with tears, but there was a smile on his face. Nian Bing's figure flashed and appeared in front of Chaji out of thin air. His action was very simple. He grabbed a few strands of Chaji's beard and pulled hard. A few strands of grayish-white beard fell off from Chaji's chin. Chaji cried out in pain and said angrily, "Stinky boy, what are you doing?" Nian Bing looked at him in shock. "Master, you're really not dead. If you can still feel pain, then you're not a soul." "Nonsense, why don't you pinch yourself?" "It hurts to pinch myself. I know I'm alive, why would I pinch myself?" The master and disciple looked at each other speechlessly. The two of them looked at each other in silence. Chaji let go of Bing Jie's hand and looked at his disciple, who was still crying in front of him. He smiled. The two tall figures overlapped, and the master and disciple hugged each other tightly. It was only at this moment that Nian Bing really hugged his master's slightly hunched body that he truly felt that kind of real feeling. He was very familiar with the smell on Chaji's body. Because he had been cooking for many years, there was always a faint smell of oil and smoke on his body. And that smell contained all kinds of aura that no one could fake. "Master." Nian Bing's tears flowed down uncontrollably again. He hugged Chaji's body, and his heart kept beating faster. What could be more perfect than this? His parents were safe and sound, and his master who he thought was dead had also reappeared in front of him. Nian Bing's heart was filled with warmth. He was so afraid that all of this was an illusion. In his master's warm embrace, all of this was so real. At that time, if it wasn't for Chaji, there wouldn't be the current Nian Bing. Even if he didn't drown by relying on the ice goddess stone, it wasn't easy to survive in the turbulent Tianqing River. Cha-Ji endured hardships, and Nian Bing had never forgotten his 8 years of teaching. When he died that year, although Nian Bing tried his best to keep calm on the surface and make himself strong, his heart was filled with endless sadness. His personality was a bit of a loner, and although it was because of his parents, Cha-Ji's death also gave him a huge shock. Therefore, when he first stepped into society, his personality was a bit strange. And now Cha-Ji appeared. He actually didn't die, he really didn't die. The last bit of darkness in Nian Bing's heart completely disappeared with Cha-Ji's arrival. Feeling the familiar aura on his master's body, his eyes became hazy with tears. He hugged his master's body tightly, afraid that he would disappear into thin air. "All right, kid, be gentle. Don't you know that your master's old bones can't take it?" Cha-Ji said in a joking tone. His mood wasn't any worse than Nian Bing's at all. At this time, although Nian Bing's appearance wasn't much different from when he left the peach blossom forest, he had become more handsome and more mature. Because of the improvement of his spiritual power and magic, an invisible noble aura appeared, and it made him look more handsome. Cha-Ji's thoughts were no different from Rongtian's. He also felt a deep sense of pride for his disciple. In a panic, Nian Bing hurriedly let go of his master's hand. He looked up and down at Cha-Ji, who didn't change much, and suddenly screamed, "Master, you were pretending to be dead that time, right? Why did you lie to me?" Cha-Ji pretended to be wronged and said, "What do you mean by pretending to be dead? I was unconscious at that time, I didn't really die. You didn't even look carefully before setting me on fire. Fortunately, I reacted quickly, otherwise I'm afraid that I really would have died." Nian Bing saw the smile in Cha-Ji's eyes and knew that he guessed right. He bitterly smiled and said, "Why? Master, why don't you want me? Do you know that when I first entered society, I encountered many things, and I didn't even have a family by my side?" Cha-Ji kindly patted Nian Bing's broad shoulders and said, "Silly kid, if your master was still here, would you be able to become like this? A young eagle can only grow up the fastest if it spreads its wings and faces the outside world alone. Master can't follow you forever. You need to rely on your own efforts to grow up. Society is your best master. Master already knows about your achievements now. You didn't embarrass me. Even though I've only had one disciple in my entire life, I'm already satisfied. Nian Bing, Master is here now, right? You're a man, you're not allowed to cry anymore." Nian Bing wiped the tears on his face and looked at Cha-Ji, then looked at his smiling parents and Bing Jie and said, "Master, what did you do after that? Were you always in the peach blossom forest?" Cha-Ji shook his head and said, "No, after you left, I also left and moved to another place to live. Otherwise, if you returned to the peach blossom forest, wouldn't you see me again?" Nian Bing was stunned and said, "Moved to another place to live? Where were you?" Cha-Ji laughed and said, "Little brat, you definitely wouldn't expect that I was always in Ice Moon City. Do you still remember which 2 restaurants in the Ice Moon Empire can participate in the cooking competition? Other than the Breeze restaurant you went to, there was only my restaurant in Ice Moon City, which is known as the most famous restaurant in the Ice Moon Empire. When you came to Ice Moon City, I heard the news. At that time, I was afraid that you would go there, so I deliberately hid. But who knew that you never went there, making me worry for nothing." Ice Moon City? Nian Bing looked at Cha-Ji in shock. He didn't think that his master would be so close to him. He looked at Cha-Ji with a helpless expression and could only smile bitterly. What else could he say? It turned out that when Nian Bing had followed Cha-Ji's instructions and burned down the wooden hut in the peach blossom forest, Cha-Ji had also secretly left the place. With his skills, even if the tendons in his arms and legs were all broken, he would still be able to get a high position in any restaurant. All he needed was some simple guidance. This was enough to make ordinary chefs benefit greatly. That year, Cha-Ji and Bing Jie had a bet. After he lost, he broke his tendons and went into seclusion. The reason why he chose the Peach Blossom Forest was because it was very close to the Ice God Tower where the Ice Goddess priests live. He had gone to the Ice God Tower more than once, but he never had the courage to go in and find Bingjie. That year, after he went into seclusion, he did hate Bingjie for deceiving his feelings. But after a few years, when he gradually calmed down, he carefully recalled the situation when he was with Bingjie. He realized that Bingjie was not heartless to him. Especially the scene when they separated, he would never forget it. After he strengthened his confidence, the hatred in his heart gradually faded. After all, everything between him and Bingjie could be said to be a joke made by fate. However, the Ice God Tower could be said to be the most sacred place in the Ice Moon Empire. Any ordinary magician there could easily take his life. He also clearly knew the rules of the Ice God Tower. Therefore, he never had the courage to go to the Ice God Tower to find Bingjie. He could only live in seclusion in the Peach Blossom Forest. Later, when Yen Bing finished her apprenticeship and left, another reason why Cha Ji made her think that he was dead was that he had already made up his mind to die. He went to the Ice God Tower alone. He only had one goal, and that was to see Bingjie again. When he came to the Ice God Tower, he directly asked to see the Ice Goddess Priestess. Originally, as an old man and a chef, it was easier said than done to see the Ice Goddess Priestess. But at that time, the Ice Goddess Priestess was Bingjie. When she heard that an old chef wanted to see her, her heart was filled with hope. Therefore, she saw Cha Ji. When she saw the man she loved deeply and deeply hurt, Bingjie used an incomparably great amount of willpower to suppress her feelings and not reveal them. Cha Ji asked her to see Bingjie. He was full of hope as he made his last request in life, and even wanted to use his own life to fulfill this last wish. Bingjie's heart was broken. But she really did not dare to face Cha Ji with her original appearance. Over the years, Cha Ji understood the grievances between the two of them. How could she not understand? She knew that Cha Ji had never done anything wrong, but she had deeply hurt him. At that time, Bingjie actually only wanted to defeat Cha Ji once, and then stay with him forever. But Cha Ji's character was unyielding. When he found out that the woman he loved had deceived him, he chose to go to the extreme. Seeing him cut the tendons in his hands and feet, Bingjie knew that this hatred would never be resolved. Seeing the man she loved deeply again in the Ice God Tower, what could she do? She did not have the courage to face him. Just like Cha Ji did not have the courage to come to the Ice God Tower to find her. So, she could only suppress the excitement in her heart and tell Cha Ji that Bingjie was sealed in the Ice God Tower and could not see outsiders. If it wasn't for the fact that she was afraid that Cha Ji would not be able to bear the shock, she probably would have directly told Cha Ji that Bingjie was already dead. But at that time, Cha Ji was already determined to die. No matter what, he was willing to leave. In order to let him live well, Bingjie could only tell him to settle down in Ice Moon City. When Bingjie's crime was resolved in seclusion, Bingjie was allowed to go to Ice Moon City to see him for the last time. Sure enough, with this spiritual support, Cha Ji regained the hope of living. Thus, he stayed in the restaurant in Ice Moon City, using his cooking skills to guide the chefs there while waiting silently. He only hoped to see his beloved one last time, and this last hope had been supporting him to live in Ice Moon City all this time. So, when Bingjie left the Ice God Tower, although Nian Bing and Bing Ling were filled with worry, Bingjie found Cha Ji very easily. At that time, she no longer had any worries in her heart. After the two met, Bingjie only said one sentence to Cha Ji. She said that she would use the rest of her life to make up for everything she did to Cha Ji. Cha Ji had finally found his hope. Although the difference in age and Bingjie's strength made them look more like father and daughter, they no longer cared about the gazes of others and decided to be together. If Nian Bing saw the Cha Ji before Bingjie met him, she would definitely feel deeply sorrowful. because at that time, Cha-ji was already like a candle in the wind. He could die at any time. But when he finally got his wish and was together with the woman he loved the most, he was in high spirit. Cha-ji's body miraculously took a turn for the better. Under Bing Jie's care, he actually became healthier and healthier. Not long ago, Bing Ling tried to use the crystal ball to communicate with her senior, wanting to ask her senior to help Nian Bing. She directly found Bing Jie. Cha-ji and Bing Jie had already reunited. From Bing Jie, he knew a lot about Nian Bing and did not need to hide anything from his only disciple. So, this time, he followed Bing Jie to the lost continent to see his disciple. At the same time, he also wanted Bing Jie to help Nian Bing fight against the enemies. After hearing everything from her master, Nian Bing's heart was filled with excitement and joy. She was happy for her master from the bottom of her heart. Although so many years had passed, it was a wonderful thing for lovers to finally be together. Even if it was a dream, Nian Bing hoped that this would happen. At the same time, with her master's arrival, Nian Bing's confidence grew. She no longer had anything to worry about. Looking at her master's kind eyes, Nian Bing's heart slightly moved and she made a decision. Cha-ji told Nian Bing about his experiences after he left. Everyone quickly flew towards the Ice Moon Lake. At this moment, everyone who was supposed to be there had already arrived. It was time to meet up with those survivors. Nian Bing and Cha-ji reunited after a long time. Cha-ji and Nian Bing sat together on Oscar's back. First, he wanted to catch up with his disciple. Second, he also wanted to experience the feeling of riding on a dragon's back. These days, Bing Jie's magic had brought him many surprises, and his disciple had become a dragon mage. This made this former ghost chef filled his heart with pride. "Master, what do you plan to do now?" Nian Bing asked with a smile. Cha-ji sat in front of her. With Nian Bing's sky-eye domain carefully guarding him, there was nothing to worry about. Cha-ji smiled and sighed. "What other plans can I have? I just want to spend the rest of my life with my master's wife. After so many years, your master's wife has also suffered a lot. The torment in our hearts can finally be released. I have to thank you, kid. If you didn't fight with her, perhaps she wouldn't have made up her mind. Your master, I, may not have been able to hold on until she woke up." Nian Bing tightly grasped his master's weak but broad hand. "Master, it was just a coincidence. There's no need for us to thank each other. If I knew she was your master's wife, I'm afraid I would have spoken for you. Perhaps this is fate. Now you can finally enjoy life. Master, the life force in your body doesn't seem to be very strong. Do you feel any discomfort?" While chatting with Cha-ji, he carefully examined Cha-ji's body. Because Cha-ji was already old, coupled with the mental torment in these years, his body's condition was very poor. Cha-ji smiled and patted the back of Nian Bing's hand. "I know my own body best. Although I know how to take care of my body in order to see your master's wife, my mood has been very low these years. I'm afraid I won't be able to leave this world for long. Child, this time I'm not pretending to be dead. After I leave, if you have time, help me take care of my master's wife. She's pitiful enough. I hope she can enjoy the warmth of a family. If possible, let her live with your parents or with you, okay?" Nian Bing shook his head. "No, of course not. Master, you don't know that your disciple already has 3 wives. If you let your master's wife live with me, wouldn't that be disrupting our lives?" Cha-ji stared blankly. He never thought that Nian Bing would actually say this. His expression changed slightly. "Nian Bing, you brat." Nian Bing chuckled and said, "Master, let me finish. Even if I agree to let your master's wife live with us, without you, what kind of home is it? Do you think your master's wife can still be happy after losing you again? Even if her magic can give her a long life, I'm afraid she will give up. Maybe she will even follow you to the underworld and be husband and wife again. So, only you can give your master's wife warmth. Only when you two live together can your master's wife be truly happy." Cha Ji smiled bitterly. Didn't I tell you that I know my own body best? To tell you the truth, my current situation is close to the final radiance of the setting sun. Don't look at me like I'm fine now. According to my own estimation, at most in a year, I'm afraid I'll be finished. You stinking brat, Master only has this little wish, don't tell me you can't help me? Nian Bing smiled. Master, I said that the only one who can help you is yourself and not me. The only one who can give your master's wife happiness is you and not me. There is one thing that you might be wrong about. You said that you know your own body best. But I can tell you with certainty that you are definitely not as clear as me about your body's condition. Just now you said that you can only live for a year at most. That is actually wrong. With your current vitality and internal organs, I'm afraid you will be finished in less than half a year. Cha Ji's complexion changed slightly. His rosy face turned pale. How could he want to die? His beloved woman had finally put aside all the grudges and returned to his side. But before he could enjoy his happiness, he had to leave this world. How could he bear to part with her? But how could life be extended according to his own wishes? Cha Ji's complexion became more and more unsightly. But he was surprised to find that his only disciple, his most beloved disciple, was actually still smiling at this moment. Revealing a faint trace of disappointment, Cha Ji calmly said, Then forget it. Since you are not willing to help me, I will not force you. Nian Bing looked at Cha Ji's appearance and knew that he was angry. After living together for 8 years, how could he not know what kind of person his master was? He smiled and said, Master, you scared me last time when you played dead. This time, I will also anger you once. It's not too much, right? Alright, don't be angry. Cha Ji said angrily, You scoundrel brat, you actually still hold a grudge against your master. Nian Bing smiled. Do you know how heartbroken I was at that time? Now that you are a little disappointed, it's already not bad.